getting back Lars, hopefully Tommy soon. When you're missing some of your key players and those guys kind of start to trickle in and everyone starts firing on all cylinders, this is a really dangerous team.
That was Miles Mikolas yesterday after yet another Cardinals victory. This one with a little bit more insurance there. 6-0 in Washington. They win 3 out of 4 against the Nationals. Alex, they are 48-42 through their first 90 games of the season. They are finally in a place where you're starting to feel comfortable about where they're at in the playoff standings. 2 more series before the end of the first half, then we'll get into the All-Star break. Miles Mikolas deserves some praise. It's time to do it. I know T-Bone doesn't want to. I know Alex doesn't want to. I'm ready to do it. Miles Mikolas was good again yesterday, guys. And he is starting to rack up the quality starts. And this is what we talked a little bit about during the offseason is, okay, quality starts, while a good thing for the team, not inherently something that you get overly excited about. Because if you just go out there 6 innings, 3 earned runs every time, it's a 4.5 ERA. Nobody's writing home about a 4.5 ERA. You look down, Miles Mikolas right now, 4.8 ERA so far on the season. It's not sterling. It's not something that gets you overly excited. However, in his last 12 starts, he has 9 quality starts. The other 3, 1 was really solid, 5 innings, 1 earned run allowed. The other 2, though, were outlier performances that always have you wondering, is the other shoe about to drop? Because when he does this, 4 innings, 6 earned runs, 4 1/3, 9 earned runs, you have no chance to win that game. That's the problem with Mikolas, is that those starts are always in the back of your mind. His first month, always in the back of your mind. His lack of strikeout stuff, only 3 strikeouts yesterday, always in the back of your mind. But Alex, when I'm just looking at the production, in his last 12 starts, 9 of them quality, he's giving the team consistently an opportunity to win. This is what a really solid number 4 starter looks like, not just during the regular season, but heading into a playoff series. Credit where it's due. Miles Mikolas is giving them a chance right now.
And I'm not denying anything that you just said. And I think the important emphasis is the number 4 starter. That's what Miles Mikolas is. I think some might have believed he was higher up on that status in terms of, maybe he's got 3rd starter in your rotation. I mean, it started the season as he was your number 2, it felt like, and then it kind of trickled down from there. I'm not going to take away the credit from Miles Mikolas because he did right the ship from how bad he was in the first month of the season. That's what I thought the outlier was going to be. I thought that was going to be regular for Miles Mikolas, but Miles Mikolas to me is a better version of Lance Lynn in terms of every time he takes the mound, I don't know what to expect. When Kyle Gibson takes the mound, I know what to expect. When Sonny Gray takes the mound, I know what to expect. For Miles Mikolas, and I said this with T-Bone, I think this was the Friday that you were out. It was after that Cincinnati Reds shellacking where he gave up 9 earned runs in 4 1/3 innings. I said, I thought that was good for the Cardinals because you learned you have to upgrade over Miles Mikolas. And my concern and why I'm worried the Cardinals view it a different way is Miles Mikolas is putting together this string of quality starts like you just mentioned. I'm more concerned that they view this as, this is Miles Mikolas, and we don't need to upgrade over Miles Mikolas. We've got Mikolas, we've got Gibson, we've got Gray, and we'll just add a little bit more to the back end of this rotation. The other shoe feels like it's always going to drop with Miles Mikolas. So as great as he has pitched from May 1st on, I still always have my guard up with him because it just takes 1 or 2 bad outings for things to fall apart like we saw last season with Mikolas.
And he's been really good, but I believe in what he's doing right now, but I would not trust it long term. And the reason I don't trust it is because what does Mikolas rely on? Batting on balls in play. How does the defense play that day? Siani saved his bacon twice on 2 incredible plays in right center field yesterday. But we know that with Mikolas, when it does go south, it goes south. Why? Because he's pitching to contact. And it just means that the ball's finding holes that day. And that's why I don't personally want him pitching in a playoff series. That's why I said yesterday they need 2 starting pitchers, which they won't do, but that's what I believe. Because Miles Mikolas, though he is pitching well, you can't rely on a guy that pitches to contact to have sustainable success. It's just too hard of a model to follow in the modern day of baseball.
But it's what they've got. Like, this is who he has always been. This isn't a new version of Miles Mikolas. Like, when he is good, it looks like this. And it's not sexy. It's not going to have a whole lot of swing and miss stuff. It's not even going to be like Kyle Gibson. Like, Kyle Gibson, you look at his recent game log, 8, 7, 6, 4, 8, 8. Those are his strikeout numbers recently. Kyle Gibson has real swing and miss stuff at this point in his career. It's never going to be Miles Mikolas. Never has been, never will be. And so you are going to be relying a lot on batted ball luck or batted ball whatever, fortune. He does get a lot of soft contact, which helps. There were a couple of instances, T-Bone mentioned them, and we're going to get to Michael Ciani here in a minute, where Michael Ciani saved his ass. Absolutely, no doubt about it. Man, that's what it is as a number 4 starter in a playoff series. Like, you look around, look at what the Diamondbacks did last year with their number 4 starter. They were doing bullpen games, man. And I'm supposed to sit here and say, like, Miles Mikolas gives you less of a chance in a playoff series than the Arizona Diamondbacks bullpen guys did for a bullpen game in the postseason? No, I just refuse to believe that. I think when we get so close to a team, the way that we are with the Cardinals here in St. Louis, we assume that their problems are different than other contenders. But, man, there's very few contenders that have really great, like, guys that you trust as a number 4 starter going into the playoffs. And maybe they have more that you can dream on, where they do have the strikeout stuff, and so it can play up in any individual game, and you just capture that magic for a 3-game stretch, and boom, now you're through, like, the ALCS or the NLCS for the Cardinals. That's not going to be the case with Mikolas. But what he could do is he goes out there, gives you a few good starts, you get through 5 innings, he's given up 2 earned runs, and you're feeling good about that, given what their bullpen is right now. So if they go into the deadline this year, add 1 starter, and Alex, I agree with you. I don't think there's anybody in America that's a Cardinals fan that would say they don't need to improve their number 2 starter. Everybody, I think, is unanimous on that. I believe even the Cardinals agree on that.
That
internally.
I don't believe.
Maybe not, but we can talk about that winner if we get there. They need to upgrade their number 2 starter right now. That means better than Mikolas. That means better than Kyle Gibson. What I'm saying is I am now, as of today, this can change depending on what happens over the next month, but as of today, I'm comfortable with Miles Mikolas starting a playoff game for you. I'm comfortable with him going into a series in the NLDS if you get there and being your number 4 starter. I'm good with that now. That was not the case a month ago. I was not comfortable with that. But we've now seen 12 starts, 9 of them being of the quality variety. If you look at it so far this season, if you just want to look at quality starts this year, there are only 12 starters in Major League Baseball that have more quality starts on the year than Miles Mikolas. Miles Mikolas has 9 in his last 12. There are only 30 pitchers in Major League Baseball that have 9 on the season. That's pretty good, man. I'm going to give him his credit where it's due, and he deserves it right now. Part of what made him successful yesterday was Michael Ciani in center field. 2 amazing catches in the first 2 innings of that game. Here's Ollie Marmol talking about what Ciani's bringing to them right now.
Those are typically doubles. I mean, this guy, his first step is incredible. He gets to a lot. The low-line drives that you think are base hits, man, he gets underneath them. He plays a really nice center field, and he's taking a good at bat. Him driving that ball to make it first and third there was a big part of it. So taking a bag, he's playing the game the right way. He's helping a ton.
I love Michael Ciani. You guys know that. You know who else loves Michael Ciani? Miles Mikolas' kid.
He's doing some incredible stuff out there in center field. He's quickly become my youngest son. He's his 2nd favorite player, maybe his most favorite, but we're still just going to assume that I'm his favorite. But he's always cheering for Mike when they're watching the games on TV, so it's pretty cool.
Alex, what is his role moving forward? Well, I think we are all in agreement. Even when Tommy Edman gets back, he's got to be starting for you regularly against right-handed pitchers, Michael Ciani, that is. But look big picture for a second. Because at the beginning of the season, he was an afterthought. He was Michael Sinise, right? Even the president of baseball operations didn't know who Michael Ciani was.
Yeah, Mo's not looking too good on that one now.
What is the future outlook as of today for Michael Ciani here in St. Louis?
I mean, I would say he is your everyday starting center fielder until Victor Scott is ready to be your everyday starting center fielder. And I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it hasn't gone very well for Victor Scott in Memphis. And, what is he, 20 years old, 21 years old? So it makes sense. No, not Ciani, Victor Scott, 23 years old.
I don't think so.
I don't believe Victor Scott, and maybe things can change by the end of the season, is going to be your everyday center fielder even next season. So I would say Michael Ciani has solidified his role as your starting center fielder until Victor Scott is ready to be an everyday outfielder. And even after that, I think Michael Ciani has solidified himself a spot on this roster as a 4th or 5th outfielder because his defense is so elite. That player has to remain on your roster because, as we've seen, he makes a pitcher who might not be a certain guy. When Michael Ciani's in the game, he makes you look like a number 3 starter. So, yeah, you're good, man. You've got a job. Lock him up.
I love the way that he plays. I think they found their new version of Harrison Bader. That's what I think they found. Now I don't know if he'll end up
Doesn't
being
have the bat, but yeah.
Or the hair.
Or the hair. If he could grow a flow, oh man. But he's not going to be Bader because Bader was like 3% below league average. Siani at best you hope would be like 15% below league average. But you can live with that in the 9 hole. You know, a lot of teams have defensive catchers that hit in their 9 spot. My boy Tucker Barnhart, not in baseball anymore, but that's what his role was. And now you have that in your center fielder. And I think that's exactly what he could be. He can be a lighter version of Harrison Bader that doesn't have the pop in the bat, but can hit for like 230, 240 average and plays just elite Gold Glove level defense.
Honestly, he's taking Dylan Carlson's job.
Oh, he's taking that.
I'm just saying, you've Wally pipped Dylan Carlson to the point that Carlson was like, well, maybe you keep him there and maybe you get something. No, that's gone as soon as everybody's healthy.
He's making it hard for Victor Scott to get that job. You know, it's not going to be a let's hand Scott the job next year. That's Siani's job, and if Scott wants it, he's going to have to go out there and earn it.
I've mentioned this before. This is always my light-hitting center fielder comparison. It's got a lot of Kevin Kiermaier vibes to it. Left-handed hitting, center fielder, not a whole lot of pop. Now, Kiermaier probably had a little more pop than what we're seeing right now out of Michael Siani, but a little bit of a late bloomer, came in and it was like, whoa, okay, who's this guy? Where did he come from? He's adding serious value to the team. And for the next 7 years, Kiermaier was awesome for the Tampa Bay Rays, and they just put him towards the bottom of their order and said, go play center field, be awesome out there, and stay healthy as long as you possibly can, because we love the defense that you're providing for us. And he was that for a consistent World Series contender. You don't have to be great as a hitter in every spot in your order. If you have elite, and I mean truly elite level defense, and that's what we're seeing from Michael Siani right now, you can overcome the fact that he's 30% below league average offensively. I don't think he's ever going to be a plus offensive player. I don't think that's in his range of outcomes.
I'd agree.
Can he always do the right thing, though? Can he lay down a bunt that ends up being a base hit because of his speed? Can he come into a game, if he doesn't start for you in any given day, and be a pinch runner for you that scores from first on a hard hit single? He's got that opportunity for you. Is he a guy that can go out there as a defensive replacement? Yes, of course he can. And when he's starting, he is going to play some of the best defense of any player at any position in all of Major League Baseball. That's the value that he's bringing to you right now. So I'm with you. It's going to be hard for Victor Scott to overcome what they currently have in center field. He has to show a lot down in AAA to become somebody that unseats Michael Siani as your starting center fielder right now. I think he has this job for the foreseeable future, and it will take somebody else ripping it away from him for them to be able to gain that job over him. I think they've done a good job of sticking with him. There were a lot of calls early on in the season when the offense was struggling to take him out of center field, put Nootbaar out there, put Dylan Carlson out there. They avoided all of those things, and they decided this is our guy. We need to build around him, and I think it was the right call.
10 years, $100 million, right, BK?
Let's do it.
Lock him up.
Kevin Kiermaier consistently gets $10 million contracts because of defense. Defense and speed.
Lock him up.
No, he's got a better bat. He will make less
They
than $10
absolutely
million.
should not
Siani's bat?
extend him. They should not give him any contract extension.
You guys are just
They
wimps.
should continue to have him playing in center field for as long as he...
Sorry.
He's at least passable offensively, and that's what he's been. He's been passable.
Sorry you don't want to continue to win. Just get rid of guys.
With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, Joe Burrow has an idea of what the ideal NFL schedule is going to be. We'll let you hear from him coming up in about 15 minutes or so. Katie Wu joins us at 12 o'clock. We'll have Jeremy Rutherford, our Blues insider, joining the show coming up at 1. Plenty of you guys as well. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. The YouTube chat, off and running as always in the graveyard, youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. But coming up next, how does the Cardinals record through 90 games compare to recent NL pennant winners? Might be a little bit more favorable than you'd expect. We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN. All right, the Cardinals are 42-4. Take two. Cardinals are 48-42 through the first 90 games of the season. That is shockingly close to a number of recent National League pennant winners. With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Officially at the 90-game point of this year's season, Alex. Here are some teams recently that won the National League pennant, that won the same number of games or fewer games through 90 in their respective season that they ended up going to the World Series.
Everybody listening to this can picture BK sitting at home with his glasses on, just getting way too excited, staring at a computer. The Cardinals are like this team.
With his apple juice.
Oh, apple juice. No, it was green juice.
Yeah, green
Go
juice.
ahead, buddy.
Got that
Get
right
us.
here.
Put your damn conductor hat on while you do it.
Oh, they look chunky.
All right, 2022 Phillies. You guys remember them? Pretty good team,
Yeah,
right?
they spanked the Cardinals.
They won 47 of their first 90 games. The 2021 Braves were under 500 at this point in the season. The 2019 Nationals, 48 of their first 90 games. 2015 Mets, 47 out of 90. And then the 2011 Cardinals, you may remember them.
Just stop.
They were 47-43 at this point in the season. I'm not comparing the Cardinals to any of these individual teams because I think they're all different in different ways. Like, they all had different strengths, they all had different weaknesses, they all have a different story as to how they got to that number of wins through the first 90 games. My point is this. Somebody on the text line said earlier today, guys, I'm typically an optimist, but I just don't feel right now that this is a very good team. They're playing good baseball, and I've been optimistic in the past, but I just can't do it this year. Why is that? I can't explain it. I can't. Because I do feel that from a lot of Cardinals fans. And it might just be because last year was so bad that people are just constantly waiting. Okay, it's going to get bad again. And the start of this season was so bad. They always feel like that could be around the corner. But when you look at the way that the Cardinals compare now, and I'm just looking at record, right? Wins and losses feels like a pretty important statistic to me. When you look at that, compared to recent World Series participants from the National League, Alex, they stack up. They're right with most of these teams. Now, there's outliers. The Dodgers, when they have gone to the World Series in recent seasons, have been better than this. Last year's Diamondbacks even, they won 52 of their first 90 games. The Cubs in 2016, super team, won 55 of the first 90 games. Same thing for the 2013 Cardinals. They were amazing, 55-35 at this point in the season. So this is not always the case. You're not always right around the 46-49 wins in the first 50 games of the season. But a lot of them are, and that's where the Cardinals find themselves. Do you take anything away from that, Alex?
I mean, I do. I think specifically how they found ways to get to this is the important part to take away. Like, they are a confident group. What Miles Mikolas said in our open is absolutely true. You've got a group of guys that have young players that are coming through in big moments. You've got some veterans that are chipping in. You've got a group that has the ability to come from behind in games. You've got a group that knows how to lock down one-run games. Like, they are a confident group, and I can't take anything away from that. But I would imagine the texter that said, like, it just feels like they're not a great team is because I think it always falls back on Goldschmidt and Arenado, to where, like, you don't have those difference makers on your roster. Now, maybe you've got different difference makers in terms of Mason Wynn, Alec Burleson, Brendan Donovan. Honestly, Wilson Contreras, if he wouldn't have been injured, probably playing at somewhat of an MVP pace.
He's top 10 in the National League in OPS.
Yeah, I mean, that guy's probably MVP pace if you don't miss an entire month of a season for Wilson Contreras. So you've got all of those pieces, but I think a little of it is the PTSD from last season for Cardinals fans, and I think the first month left a sour taste in some people's mouths. But when you list all of those other teams that were in similar situations, you can list off who their best players were, and I don't know if you can do that for this Cardinals team.
I think you can.
I think you can, but I don't know if you can convince other people that it's on the same level as those teams and their best players.
Yeah, I think what it is, because this is kind of where
They don't
I
have
was
a
going to go with
superstar.
this, is they don't have the MVP guy like you do when you look at those teams in terms of the offense. And when you look at those teams when they got there outside of Atlanta, for the most part, like when I say like the 23 Diamondbacks, the 22 Phillies, how did they get to 47 and 52 wins respectively by this point? Well, the way you thought it was going to happen. Like when you look back on the Phillies of 22, how'd you think they'd get there? Well, they'd have Bryce Harper playing like an MVP. They'd have Nick Castellanos playing well.
JT Realmuto
was playing well. And then they have Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola dealing at the top of the rotation. Like, okay, I can see how that team would have 52 or 47 wins at that point in the season. When you think of how the Cardinals were going to do that coming into the year, your thought process would be, okay, Goldy, Arenado, Contreras, those three are mashing.
Sure.
Burleson and Wynn are not a part of that conversation at the time. Gorman's hitting like 40 home runs for you. Newt's a guy that looks pretty good. Donovan at the top of your order. And your rotation is like Sonny Gray's pitching well. And when you look at it, the rotation, Gray's done that. The bullpen's been
really good,
farther than what I think anybody expected.
It's top 5 in Major League Baseball in ERA. I think that they've been elite.
It's been really good, and it's something that people didn't really know what to expect because the Cardinals did the right approach in the offseason, which was we're going to throw a whole bunch of names at it and just see what happens. And it's been great. But when I say Kyle Gibson, I say Lance Lynn, I say Miles Mikolas, you don't think of a starting rotation that is going to be a part of 48 wins. When I say the offense and I say, okay, now Goldy and Arenado are not Goldy and Arenado of old, how do you think the offense is going to look? And everybody would go, well, they're not going to be good. They're going to be the team I saw in the first part of the month. And I think that's where it goes back to is even though everything is going the right way for the Cardinals, people still, go, okay, well, that's not how I thought it was going to be, which makes me worry that the shoe will drop back to where they were when they were 9 games below 500 in Milwaukee.
And let's also not deny the run differential. I mean, that does not look pretty. Sure. Minus 33 is hard to convince that it's the same level as some of these other teams.
Yeah, and I went into yesterday how that, like, they would be a historical outlier if this continues and they end up being a good team this year. Most teams that have their kind of run differential are bad. I mean, that's no surprise. When you're getting outscored the way that they have for the vast majority of the season, it doesn't end with you being a playoff team. It never does. Ben Fredrickson wrote a piece earlier today on that. And I just, like, when you look at what they have in their lineup, I think something that we need to do is just think through what it looks like if this is just the changing of the guard. Like, Wilson Contreras has been amazing this year, guys. He's getting on base 40% of the time on the season. He has a slugging percentage over 500. And yes, he did miss a significant amount of time, and so that skews things in terms of how we think about it. But Alec Burleson has been awesome for the Cardinals this year. He has been for them this year essentially what one of Goldy or Arenado, whoever you want to choose, were for them offensively a year ago. He's 25% above league average so far this year. Brendan Donovan. It was a weird start to the season, but basically since the first month, which is pretty explainable considering he's coming off of surgery last year that made him miss the final 2 months of the year, he's been like 30% above league average offensively. So you're getting it from different players. It's different guys. Mason Wynn, who's been awesome for them so far this year. It's not the guys that you expected it to come from, but the production is still there. And ultimately, that's what matters. I don't really care who the production is coming from as long as you're getting production. It's just not Arenado and Goldy. Like, those guys are basically league average offensively on the season, and that is the surprise. And that is probably why nationally people are so slow to it. But I'm not even talking about people nationally. People locally aren't buying into this team. It is such a fascinating dynamic between team and city, team and fan base. Guys, I can't recall a time where a team, this is no longer a small sample size. We're 2 months into this. Since May 12th, they have the best record in the National League. There's nobody that has been playing better baseball than the Cardinals over 2 months, and people aren't ready to buy in. That's fascinating to me.
Can I be honest with you? And it's what I think we've talked about a couple of weeks ago. It's because the regular season doesn't matter to Cardinals fans.
It should, though, right?
I don't think it does.
No.
This
That's
fan
sad.
base,
Like, what are we doing there?
This fan base needs to see it in the playoffs. This fan base is done with the regular season success and the 17-game win streaks and going on a run in 1 month that puts them in the playoff conversation. They're sick of hearing about that and then getting to the postseason and then scoring 2 runs and losing in 2 games.
I know, but you can't get to the postseason unless you have the regular season.
I completely understand
part of what
that.
is enjoyable about consuming baseball is that it's every day.
But how is the regular season exciting when you know what to expect in the postseason?
You don't, though. This is where I just will always push back. We don't know what to expect in the postseason.
I think Cardinals fans would argue that they do.
But you can't, because this is a totally different team.
But you can if you're relying on Goldschmidt and Arenado.
But you're not. Like, this is what we have to realize. They're not relying on Goldy and Arenado.
Well, the lineup batting order tells you differently when they're hitting in the 4 or 5 hole.
This team is relying on young players. This team is relying on a totally different set of pitchers than has ever been a part of any postseason series for them, other than Miles Mikolas, who might start a game 4 for them this year in the postseason.
Which is why
Like,
I think a lot of people need to see it in the postseason. The young guys are doing it right now, but what does it look like in the playoffs? At least that's what I personally feel like for a lot of Cardinals fans.
I'd agree with that. I think it all comes down
what
to
are we? I just.
Hey
what
man,
are we
if I could
watching for the 6 months?
If I could fast forward to October, I'm there. Let's see it.
I know, but that just feels like such a. I watch baseball differently, and so I can only speak for myself. It seems like such an unfortunate way to consume this game. Like part of the value, part of what makes baseball fun and different than every other sport is that the regular season, like getting to the playoffs and the journey that you go on to get there, the ebbs and the flows of a regular season, the injuries, the marathon, like that's all part of it. And if we're just saying like none of that matters anymore, then baseball has a huge problem on its hands. And what is the 162 for at that point? Like it just becomes completely meaningless. So for 6 months, people are just sitting there kind of sort of consuming the sport. And then, hey, wake me up when October gets here. Like that just, it feels like it totally devalues the product. It totally devalues what
it just feels like a lot of people don't believe in this roster. And I mean, I understand what you're saying, and like it's a little frustrating too for me because like you are seeing it with Mason Wynn and Alec Burleson and Brendan Donovan, but it just feels like for the last 4 years it's all about but are you going to do anything in the playoffs? Because you've just been swept in the wild card round multiple times, and then last year happened. It's are you going to do it in the playoffs? And until they show an aggressive move to get something done in the playoffs, which is why I feel like the trade deadline is so important for the Cardinals. That's where I think people can start investing a little bit more.
Interesting. I mean, I think you're right. I think the majority of people are closer to where you're at than I am. And somebody on the text line said, oh, BK, please tell me what you think is fun. Tell me what I should think is fun. It's not what I'm telling you. You can consume baseball however you want to. I'm telling you, for me, I like the journey. I enjoy the 162. I like the ebbs and the flows. I like the fact that this team was 15-24 through 39 games of the season, and we all said we're out. We're done. We did the purge. Like, it was over. We hated this team. We wanted everybody fired. Like, it was done, right?
Remember the purge?
And now 2 months later, they've been the best team in baseball over those 2 months. We're really enjoying watching a lot of the young guys, like, reach new heights, and we're seeing people emerge in positions that we didn't expect. And Miles Mikolas has seemingly figured things out as a pitcher. And like, I love this stuff, man. This is the fun part of baseball, and ultimately, this is the candy store of what we're talking about here. Like, we're talking about baseball for a living. This stuff is not overly serious compared to some of the other stuff going on in our country right now that we don't have to get into. That's for a different podcast on a different day. But
you're doing another podcast, man?
Yeah.
Come on.
We'll do the dad pod. We'll talk about politics. It'll be
coming
great.
up with new podcasts and not following through.
No kidding.
I watch baseball a little differently.
It just feels like Cardinals fans don't want to be let down again. They don't want to get their excitement and their hopes up and then get let down.
Is Cardinals fans and the majority of our listening audience, they were growing up. So we skew a little younger with our audience. So a lot of them were growing up in the 2000s, right? They watched Albert Pujols. They watched
T-Bone
from 2002 essentially to 2013. They watched a team that every single season wasn't just good. They were excellent, man. For the 2007 notwithstanding. I looked this up. The Cardinals, in their first 90 games of the season, so apples to apples with where we're at right now, they won 50-plus games in 2002, 2004, 2005, 2006, 2008, 2013.
Albert Pujols.
Glory days.
That skews a perspective of a fan base. And I'm not telling you that you should be accepting of what they are now.
I want you to say
I'm telling you that was not the norm. And so I think there will come a point in time where we look back on that and say, hot damn, what an unbelievable run that the Cardinals had during the Albert Pujols years. And now it's different, man. It is. I'm sorry. It's different. And the Cardinals are in the same lot in life right now as the Padres and as not the Phillies, honestly. Sorry, guys. It's just they operate at a different level. They are the Diamondbacks. They are the Padres. They are the Giants. Like, they're in that category of team in the National League right now, and that means that the regular season for us matters. It does. It's not the same as it was when Albert was here. And every year, you know you're getting to the postseason.
Say it.
And you know there's a chance at a World Series. So when you have these chances, when it does come up, which it is this year, I'm going to enjoy it while we've got the opportunity to watch it.
Dad.
Coming up next, NFL Quick Hitters here on 101 ESPN.
Terry Hendricks here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals beat the Nationals yesterday 6-0 as they take 3 of 4 from Washington. And tonight they're supposed to start a 2-game set here at home against the Kansas City Royals. Currently 6:45 for first pitch. Andre Palante is supposed to get the start for St. Louis. Michael Wacha will be on the mound for Kansas City. The Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
All right, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters with Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK. Joe Burrow went on a podcast yesterday, the Pardon My Take podcast, and said something interesting, Alex. They asked him about the ideal NFL schedule. Here's what he had to say that would look like.
18, gotta have 2 bye weeks.
I like
and I
that.
think it'd be cool to do a normal bye week schedule that it is now. Like, have it spread out. But then, like, week 13, do, like, the Pro Bowl break, where you're doing, like, the 7-on-7 and all the skills challenges like the NBA does, because I think that would get more ratings for the Pro Bowl.
Yes.
And then it would also give everybody that bye week going into, like, the last 6 games of the year.
My big idea is, especially now with the expanded college football playoff, you do the week before Christmas, no NFL, college football playoffs, give everyone a break to go do their shop. You get the President's Day Monday after the Super Bowl off.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
When would that Super Bowl then fall? Because that would be a challenge, but that would be perfect.
Perfect.
So that's Joe Burrow on the Pardon My Take podcast. Essentially, 18-game schedule, 2 byes, Pro Bowl moved from postseason to end the season, similar to what you see with Major League Baseball, similar to what you see with basically every other North American sport
does it.
other than the NFL. How did you guys feel about that? The schedule that he lays out there.
I don't mind it. I think it's smart. Not so much you can get excitement for the Pro Bowl because no All-Star break other than baseball seemingly has excitement for it, but it's a week off in the middle of the season. That seemingly makes more sense. And then the question he asked there at the end, where's the Super Bowl fall? Super Bowl falls around the same time? Or it falls on President's Day.
It would be the Sunday before President's Day, which is ideal. The NFL should be doing that.
That, I think, is the smartest decision from there. So, yeah, if you're going to go 18 games, you got to go 2 bye weeks. I think it makes a ton of sense to move the Pro Bowl in the middle of the season rather than do it at the end of the season because nobody cares by that time. And then your Super Bowl falls on a day after that people can have the day off from work. So, I would say that's about as ideal as you can ask for.
Yeah, I love it. And like the Pro Bowl, I know that some guys probably don't go now and probably wouldn't go even then. NFL could work something out to get that to happen more. Like NHL will suspend guys a game. Now, I don't think they'd go that far, but add some fines in, maybe get guys to come out to the game. I think that's ideal. You got the Super Bowl that ends right around President's Day. You get that Monday off. I think that is where it needs to be. And if you go 18 weeks, I do like the idea of instead of sprinkling 2 byes throughout the schedule where you get like 4 teams off one week, 6 teams off the next, I do think one of those byes should be everybody gets this entire week off, and especially late in the season, get everybody fresh for that home stretch run there for the final, whatever it is, 5-6 games that you've got to play. I think that's the perfect way to do it if you're the NFL.
Got an idea. There's a 3-week stretch for your bye week, right? You get a Thursday game. The following week, you have an international game. Every team in the NFL plays an international game in this scenario. And then you have a bye week. So you get the 10 days between your Thursday game and the international game. So you get more time off before that extended travel. And then you get a bye week upon your return to the States after the international game that you just played. So you're expanding the game with every team playing internationally. That is the extra, quote-unquote, game that everybody ends up being played with the 18-game schedule. Everybody has the right amount of rest before and after that international game because that can screw teams up sometimes. And then you get one more bye somewhere in your schedule. I think that is the ideal way to go about this, and each team then will get a Thursday game as well. It would be difficult to go about it this way. Like the actual construction of the schedule would be a little tough. But I think if they can find a way to maneuver that way, that's the ideal way to do the first bye week, and then you figure out the second one from there. And I do think the 18-game schedule is something that the NFL will eventually go to. It will push the season back an extra week, and that will allow all of us to enjoy the Super Bowl the day before President's Day, where most of us have that President's Day off. So Super Bowl Sunday is unofficially a holiday in America, which is what all of us would be looking for.
We'll be
Would
working,
still rather have it be a holiday and have both the Super Bowl and President's Day off.
By the way, a little bit of news to pass along. This comes from Martin Kilcoyne. He said the Cardinals game tonight against the Royals is expected to be postponed. Looks like they're likely to play a doubleheader on Wednesday, which does surprise me a bit. They are waiting on official word. The two teams have a mutual off day on Thursday, so I'm a little surprised they'd go with the doubleheader on Wednesday instead.
Get all those days off.
My guess is just you don't have to really think much about your rotation because there's only a week left prior to the All-Star break, so it doesn't really mess with your rotation too much. You go straight into the All-Star break, and it would allow them to have that extra day or extra player for the 27th man as well. So I'm assuming that the two teams will negotiate this, and they would come to terms with the doubleheader.
I'm a little surprised that the Cardinals would want that because they've got a doubleheader on Friday or Saturday as well.
Cardinals
But you do
just
have the
announced
2
it.
days off. It is official.
Yeah, game is going to be made up tomorrow at 12:45 as a split doubleheader. Cardinals just made it official.
Interesting. A little surprised that they would go that route instead of the Thursday day game, where the Royals and Cardinals would just play Wednesday and Thursday, a traditional 2-game set. But this will allow them to have today off completely. It'll allow them to have Thursday off completely, and then you go into that final series of the season. So a traditional or a day-night doubleheader tomorrow.
Man.
Of course, I was planning to go to the game today,
makes
which
sense.
means
This is
it
like
ends up getting rained out.
If you're a baseball player, this is like a snow day, right? Where it's like you wake up and
Oh,
you're
for
like, "Oh, I
sure.
got to go in today," and it's like, "Oh, we're calling it? Yeah, free day.
Then Ollie calls and goes, "Get your butt in the batting cage.
Get
Come
down
on,
there
Ollie.
and start doing some
You haven't put
fungo.
in that much. Get in there."
Get out there and hit some balls."
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, I don't know that was exactly what you were trying to
That's
say.
exactly what I was saying. You got to hit some balls right now.
Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Questions and answers here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers from the Water Boy. BK, Randy called you no fun. How would you respond to that?
He's scared. Oh, no.
I don't know what that means.
Did he really call you no fun?
I don't know.
I mean,
didn't
T-Bone
hear
and I
that.
can attest. You are no fun, but
Yeah.
it's like somebody can't. It's like a mama bear and a papa bear. You know, you can't call my kid no fun.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the context of that. I would disagree.
Do you think you're fun though?
My question would be, what's fun for Randy?
That is a great point. Well, golf,
like trivia?
obviously.
Listen, am I Jamie Rivers? No. Like there's different levels.
There's
right?
only one Jamie
I don't know if
Rivers.
that's fun. That's dangerous. And dangerous fun, then that's fun for you.
I like being around people like Jamie Rivers because they pull me in. Like there's something.
Or he's nice stay away.
I think that's dangerous.
Alex went on my bachelor party though. He's seen like that. I like to have a good time.
I wouldn't invite him.
Man, we knew each
Still
other for like
bitter.
6 months.
I think mine was a pity invite. We worked together for like 6 months, and he's like, "Hey man,
we
you
worked
want to come?"
together for a couple of years at that
Oh,
point.
I didn't feel that way.
You and Jamie
I would
were
have taken
both
a pity
invited.
invite, you know.
Yeah, Jamie didn't show up, did she?
Oh, he said it's because of the Yoho thing. Listen, man, I'm willing.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
I'm willing to do our Believe It or Not on the air. I like it. It's fun. The Yoho just doesn't do it for me, man. It's just
Difference between
Doesn't
fun and
go for
dumb,
me.
you know?
I don't know if that's fun though. Like, I mean, we
that's-
do our
if
own
that's
thing,
what
but we do Believe It or Not. I don't know if anybody's going to want to sing Believe It or Not.
Of course not. The morning show would think that's the dumbest thing in the world, which is fine. We all do a different show. We don't do trivia.
We do karaoke night.
We did a roundup where we put cowboy hats on and yelled "Yee-haw" for an entire segment. So we all do dumb things.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Honestly, that makes me feel better that that's what it was about.
But I mean, you aren't any fun.
No, fair. Probably.
This guy goes to sleep early every time we go to Alton. Am I right, T-Bone?
No.
High five.
We have a good time at Alton.
We do. People that call me no fun, I have fun
Alex
at
has a
Alton.
good time at Alton.
Yeah.
What
Alex is the
happens
one-
in Alton, though, stays in Alton.
Alex is the one that has fun, but he's got to be really dragged into having
Yeah.
fun.
And I know T-Bone complains about me in Nashville. If I didn't,
Day one in Nashville is bad
if I
and
didn't have to
embarrassing.
drive 5 hours and know that we were stuck in a stadium for an entire
If
day,
Randy
I
would've
would
said-
have been out
if
with you.
Randy would've said
Promise you,
Ferrario's
if
not
I
fun,
was
I would've
there,
agreed.
we would have gone out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you two would have. I wouldn't have. I would have gone back to bed.
No, we would have gone.
No.
We
Drove for
would've found
5
a way.
hours, and I knew what the next day was going to
We
hold.
didn't even stop for something nice for dinner.
Yeah, we did. We got Culver's.
Oh, my
But didn't
God.
stop either, by
Well, of
the way.
course we didn't stop. I'm not going to get down there any later.
I would have been okay with that. I would have been okay with eating that in the car.
There's rules when you do road trips with me. I don't stop to pee, and I don't stop to eat.
Unbelievable.
Number twos are when you stop.
That's fair. All right.
Hold the
From
number
the
ones.
618. Guys, as we head into training camp, are there any NFL teams that you see as potential under-the-radar contenders? NFL teams that you see as under-the-radar contenders?
I mean, I would say the Chicago Bears. I don't think anybody's giving them credit, but I would definitely say watch out for them. I don't know if Houston can be considered under the radar. We've brought up the Titans. Titans, I think, should be at least in that conversation,
it all comes down to Will Levis with them.
which is
Yeah.
a dangerous game.
Would Atlanta be considered that? Like, I really love that Atlanta team. And I know, like, they should be favored in the South, but I feel like they're a team that could be viewed as kind of a sleeper to go on a deep playoff run. Not maybe the Super Bowl, but surprise you. Maybe you look up and you go, hot damn, Kirk Cousins is in the NFC Championship game. Or Michael Penix, whoever they choose.
It's almost hard to do under-the-radar contenders because, like, I feel like everybody that it could be a contender gets discussed as a potential contender at this point because we have the 24-hour news cycle. T-Bone's Rams, I think, maybe would be one of those teams.
Nah.
We don't know how to get to the quarterback, but
They've got a top 10 quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah,
they
but
have
no defense.
really good weapons. Their question is the defense. And I don't know if they have any answers on that side of the ball. But if you were looking for, especially NFC-wise, a team that might surprise some people, they were a playoff team last year. So, but I would go with the Rams in that regard.
I don't think this will happen. But if McCarthy clicks in Minnesota faster than they were expecting,
That's a
I
good
can see
one.
where Minnesota surprises you and makes the playoffs.
The one that I brought up yesterday as the MVP candidate is Anthony Richardson. And if he's as good as he looked early on last year, the Colts could be a contender this year.
Yeah.
They could surprise some people. They could be a team that we all look back and we're like, whoa, hold on. So the Texans were the team that we all had our eye on, and then the Colts won more games than them. How did that happen? That's one that would probably be legitimately under the radar, in my opinion. All right, coming up in about 15 minutes or so, everything about the Blues' immediate outlook hinges on what happens with their second-line center. We'll talk about that, especially in regards to Jeremy Rutherford's latest projection for their lineup on opening night. We'll get into that at 12:15. Katie Woo, our Cardinals insider for The Athletic, has an off day today, an unexpected one, and she'll join us next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN, and I owe a sincere apology to one Katie Wu. She's our Cardinals insider here on 101 ESPN, and she writes for The Athletic. She does fantastic work for them, and she's very busy. And so when she offers you 15 minutes of her time, she expects you to grant that 15 minutes when you say you're going to. And yesterday I forgot. Just flat out forgot. I'm an old man. I have a child at home now. I'm exhausted. He's 1. We had his 1-year-old doctor's appointment yesterday, and she said, you are now at the place of having a toddler, and that means exhaustion at all times.
Hey, man, I smoothed this over
right.
with Katie. I sent her a picture of my cute kids, and Katie was like, hey, this made everything better. Just tell BK not to contact me. So, Katie, I'll do the interview today. BK will not speak to you.
So Katie is joining us now here on 101 ESPN, and we appreciate her doing so. The reason she's not on Monday and is instead on Tuesdays because I'm a big dummy. So, Katie, thank you for joining us as always.
You know, guys, like I'm used to getting ghosted in like my personal life, but professionally, that was a new one for me. But you know what? I'll forgive you, BK, because you do have a very cute 1-year-old. But Alex is coming up with his own pics of his own very cute kids. So maybe we can have a little competition of who can send me more.
Well, he's got cheaper by the dozen at home,
Yeah, I was
so
going
that's
to
not
say,
fair.
Katie, just give it a week and I'll send you more newborn pictures because I've got the third one coming.
All right, so Katie was joining us as she does each and every week, and she has an off day, an unexpected off day today for the Cardinals. So let's talk about the newsy side of things first, Katie. They're going to play a doubleheader tomorrow, split doubleheader, day-night. How does that affect, I know this is new, fresh, but based on your kind of read into this, how would you anticipate that affecting the Cardinals' pitching plans?
I actually think this is best case scenario, and I'm not just saying this because it means I don't have to like put jeans on today. I think when you play a doubleheader, obviously you get that 27th man. So we know the Cardinals are playing a doubleheader on Wednesday. They also have a makeup doubleheader on Saturday against the Cubs. So at first glance, you're thinking, wow, 2 doubleheaders in the course of 4 days. That's not ideal. But they have the off day today now. They have the off day Thursday, the scheduled off day, and for 2 games. 1 on Wednesday, 1 on Saturday. They'll have an extra pitcher that they can use as their 27th man. So I do think they're going to be okay in terms of how they shake out pitching-wise. Maybe not the most ideal scheduling, but in my mind, it's probably best case scenario.
So, Katie, now that we're 90 games in, of course, today's game being postponed, have you learned anything more about this Cardinals team from what we've seen in the first couple of months of the season?
Yeah, it's crazy they've played 90 games already, but I think the big thing that I've learned, and it's something that seems pretty obvious, but you don't really realize it until you've played such a substantial amount of games, is that you have no idea what a team looks like in April. And that can go both ways. You have teams that can come off to a really hot start in April and you're really encouraged about them, and then they take a nosedive. Or you have, like the Cardinals I'm looking at MLB Network right now, 33-18 in their last 51 games. That was not a number that we saw in April. So I think what we're seeing from St. Louis is sometimes it just takes a little bit of time to gel. I know that, every single model preseason projected that the Cardinals could not have a successful season without solid years from Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado. They needed to contribute if the Cardinals wanted any hope to stay afloat. Well, Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado, not the best seasons we've ever seen, and the Cardinals are a season-high 6 games over 500 and are right behind Milwaukee in the NL Central standings. So that's my biggest takeaway from the first 90 games is something you can't draw a definitive analysis from the first 30.
Katie, you mentioned Arenado and Goldy. And I'm curious because they've approached this as basically, hey, eventually they're going to be Goldy and Arenado. And there's been some progression there. Arenado's hitting for average lately, and Paul Goldschmidt is continuing to hit the ball hard. However, Nolan Arenado has 0 extra base hits with runners in scoring position since May 5th. Goldy has 1. They have a combined 113 plate appearances in those situations. Is there going to come a point in time at some point, probably after the All-Star break, where they have to consider moving those guys down in the order, in your opinion?
I think in a way, we've already seen them do that a little bit. We've seen Nolan hit 6 for about a week, but I think it really depends over the course of July. And it depends for a multitude of reasons. I wrote in The Athletic 2 days ago that the right-handed production is going to be the biggest test in terms of if the Cardinals add a right-handed bat at the trade deadline. And that is all about what they can do internally. Wilson Contreras, we're not really worried about him. Goldschmidt, Arenado, they have their basically 3 weeks to show that they can produce the right-handed production in the middle of the order that this team needs. If not, St. Louis might have to go out and get externally that kind of right-handed production. If that does happen, I would imagine sliding down a little bit in the order. But here's the thing. is Goldschmidt and Arenado have earned every bit of this length and trust from the organization when you think about what they've done in their careers. And I don't see a world where Ollie Marmol rolls out a lineup and Goldschmidt's batting 6th and Arenado's batting 7th. I do think everyone in that clubhouse, including those two players, are convicted that they're going to turn it around in the second half. But if they prove or show things that maybe aren't up to the standards that the team or they expect it to be, then maybe St. Louis goes out and gets another right-handed bat to accompany them, and then you might see some lineup shuffle from there.
If they do pursue that, Katie, how does that right-handed bat get into the lineup? Or is it just strictly a bench bat?
I think you're looking for an outfield bat if you're John Mozeliak on the Cardinals, and you're looking for that specifically because they don't really truly platoon, right? Like Brendan Donovan, Lars Nootbaar, when healthy, they stay in the lineup every day. So will Alec Burleson. Ollie Marmol made that clear over the National Series when he talks about guys that he just simply won't platoon. And Burleson has earned every bit of being a mainstay in the lineup. Where he'd like to maybe platoon the position is center field. Michael Ciani, in my mind, Gold Glover defender, not the best production against left-handed pitching. So if you're looking for an outfielder that can slot in, and this kind of ties into if Tommy Edman is healthy or not, then all of a sudden you have a little bit more flexibility where you can platoon the positions, not necessarily platoon the players, but you can get your best kind of maximum lineup output by putting in a right-handed outfielder that can play the corners, maybe some center, but that's not like a true requirement. You're also looking for a rental. I don't see the Cardinals going out and looking for someone that they can sign for ample years of control because they don't feel like they need that. What they need is a stopgap solution for the final 2.5 months of the season from the right side that can slug the ball.
We're talking to Katie Woo here on 101 ESPN. You can read her great work over at The Athletic, where she did write about the Cardinals' right-handed production recently. You can also follow her on Twitter at Katie J. Woo. Katie, when you look at what the Cardinals' plans could be, as we're just a few weeks away now from the trade deadline, the name that has kind of popped up, and I don't know how real it is, but as a question for a lot of Cardinals fans is what's the plan with Jordan Walker? Because he's still down in AAA. Last year had such a great season. I don't need to tell you about what his story is. Do you get the sense that he's essentially an untouchable for the Cardinals as we approach this year's trade deadline? How do they view him this year?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say he's not as untouchable as years prior. I don't think the Cardinals in any way want to get rid of him, but he's certainly not a non-negotiable at this point. And maybe that is kind of just recency bias. I don't think so. I think when the Cardinals are looking at their long-term plans, they do hope that Jordan Walker can get right because he is such a dynamic talent, a great bat, and, you know, has done everything he could to succeed as an outfielder at the major league level despite not really developing as one. But as the Cardinals kind of look on who's stepped up and who's emerged as everyday players, it does kind of draw into question Jordan Walker's long-term future, Victor Scott II's long-term future. I don't think the Cardinals want to move either of those guys. But before bringing up those names was non-negotiable, conversation was not going anywhere. I think at this point, I'm not saying that they're certainly likely to be traded or that the Cardinals will entertain that offer, but I think they'll at least listen this year.
So if they get to that point, Katie, do you do that going big C fishing for a pitcher if Jordan Walker's name becomes available at the trade deadline?
I just don't see the Cardinals doing that based on their history. I mean, I'll give John Mozeliak his credit. He hasn't made the splashiest of deals at the trade deadline. They've always been maybe like conservative, but they've worked out. I mean, you're thinking even back to 2021 when he was roasted by the whole industry for trading for John Lester, and then it worked. So I don't see the Cardinals necessarily blowing up their farm system or trading someone with so many years of control because they've been so protective over their core for years. I do think that if they are going to make a trade, it's going to be more middle-tier rental agreements where Jordan Walker would not be in part of that conversation. Now, if something arises over the next 3 weeks where the Cardinals all of a sudden find themselves in play, maybe, but I think right now, as John Mozeliak tries to figure out what his team looks like, he's looking for, to use one of his own words, something that won't necessarily go past his puke point in terms of what he's willing to give up.
Are we talking, like, if Nathan Eovaldi became available, is that kind of in that range of what you're talking about?
I don't think so. I don't think that they would entertain that one for Nathan Eovaldi.
Really?
No.
Like Eric Fetty, is that aiming too high?
It depends on how they value their current prospects right now.
I didn't like that side, Katie.
I think Eric Fetty would be a great. We talked about this. Would be a great addition to the rotation. He does have one more year of control. He's everything the Cardinals usually target. It's hard to predict what they'll do right now because they still themselves aren't sure. We've heard Mo say this before. He's waiting to see what the team looks like at basically full strength with, waiting to see if Edmund can come back from that rehab assignment, if he's cleared to play, what Lars Newbar looks like. I do think he has an idea of what he'd like to do, but I don't think it's gone so far where they're like, this player is untouchable. We are maybe looking at this one, so on and so forth.
I guess I get that. But they're 48-42 and have the best record in the National League over the course of the last 2 months.
Yeah, BK thinks they're World Series bound, Katie.
And now they're getting healthy. I'm not saying they're World Series bound by any stretch, but I mean it's clearly a good team. I don't know how good, but relative to the rest of the National League, like third, fourth best team in the National League potentially, like that's in their range of outcomes right now. And we'll see what happens with the Phillies and the Dodgers once we get into the postseason. But to me, that feels like a team worth investing in. No, Katie?
I would agree, especially when you have a fan base that was totally turned off by the play last year and is looking for some sort of good faith. I think if you want this fan base to buy back in, you show the fans that you're serious about competing, and you're doing so. Look, it's really difficult for any team to be 20 games under 500 and then surge into the playoffs. That's the fact that the Cardinals are here where they're at is, from an industry perspective, like a really impressive sign. But the Cardinals have a different kind of expectation, and so do their fans, where they should be here, right? They should be contending every year for the postseason. That's what they've built their whole brand on. So if you want to ensure that you're just not making the wild card, or that you're saying that you're putting together a competitive team just for the sake of doing so, if you really want to make a run for it, should be semi-aggressive at this trade deadline. It would just be so against what we've seen from the Cardinals in the past. I'm not saying that they aren't aggressive, but we've seen their moves. It's been more, let's play it safe where the margin of error is not crazy, but these guys definitely boost our club.
Katie, we appreciate the time as always. Thanks for rescheduling with us for today, despite my blunder yesterday. Appreciate it. Your insight is fantastic. Enjoy the off day today, the off day again on Friday, and then a full week off next week with the All-Star break.
It's great to be Katie Woo.
It is. It is so great today, at least. You got it, guys. We will talk soon.
You got it. That's Katie Woo joining us, as she does each and every week here on BK and Ferrario, most of the time on Mondays, this week on Tuesday because I messed up. All right. Alex is going to be right.
I was going to say, that just blew up in BK's face. The look on his face is the look of, you got to be bleeping kidding me.
Yeah. We got to stick with this. So on the other side, I want to talk about what Katie just said there, which is basically, yeah, Alex is right. Everything he's been saying is 100% correct. They're going to aim low, and they're going to get a number 4 starter that maybe plays into their postseason plans. And if things go well.
But a number 5 that might be better than Lance Lynn.
Listen, man, I'm trying to aim high.
Mo's gonna mow.
So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And what's the dream scenario? If you could just say, hey, call your shot. This is the guy you would love to see them trade for, regardless of cost. Who is that player? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN. right, so we just talked to Katie Wu, who she's fantastic. She does great work, and she's super tied into the organization. And when I asked her, so at the deadline, we talking like Nathan Eovaldi level? That's a little too high, probably. Alex, my body just melted to the ground.
It wasn't even that. And then you went to Eric Fetty, and she goes, I mean, you get.
And it's understandable. Like, let's be clear here. We're not criticizing anything that Katie is saying.
Oh, no.
We are criticizing that she is messaging for the organization. She's explaining the organization's perspective on this stuff, because there's a difference, right? Reporting versus her opinion. Her reporting suggests this might be aiming a little bit high for the Cardinals, which is a disaster. Like, you shouldn't be aiming lower than Fetty or Eovaldi. Now, maybe you have to. Maybe the prices get so exorbitant that they're asking for, like, Jordan Walker for one of those two players. Again, unreasonable ask. Unreasonable request from either of those two organizations. And I don't think that's going to be the request. I think you're talking about one of the Cardinals' young arms. I think that's what you're talking about, probably. Is an arm that you don't want to give up, but you probably have to be able to get an Eric Fetty or a Nate Eovaldi into your system. And you know why that's, in my opinion, worth it? Because the hope is that those young arms become one of Eric Fetty or Nathan Eovaldi. And yes, you have more control over them, but Fetty has another year under contract. You know what the Cardinals need next year? A number 2 starter. Fetty can be that for you. You know what you could potentially do with Nathan Eovaldi? Keep him around. Like, get him in here, show him how great it is to pitch in St. Louis, show him that you're a contender. Show him how great it is to pitch specifically at Busch Stadium, where I'm sure he would really enjoy pitching there, and get him on a long-term extension. Get him another 3 years. He could be the next leader of this rotation, along with Sonny Gray. You've got a 1-2, and Eovaldi is a known winner in the postseason. Like, if that's aiming too high, then Alex is going to be proven correct. If that's aiming too high, then the Cardinals will go too low at the deadline, and they won't give themselves a chance in the postseason. And I think that'd be really unfortunate for everybody involved.
I mean, you always get pre-mad at me when I do these things, but the Cardinals have a track record. They have a track record other than, and I know everyone brings up Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt, but that was gifted to you. Jordan Montgomery was probably the splashiest move that they have pulled off, and that traded away a Harrison Bader. This team, they always seem to convince themselves that what they have is better than anything else out there. And although that might be true in some sense, like Sonny Gray, probably the best thing that you're going to have. Miles Mikolas, if this is who he is, I don't know how much better you can upgrade it for the price that's going to be out there. But at some point, you have to stop convincing yourself that these guys will be fine enough for us and turn it to, these guys are good, but we need to get, as Pop Warner likes to say, gooder. We've got to go out there and take that next step. But the Cardinals, since 2019, feels like they don't need to take that next step. Unless another team comes calling and says, hey, this guy only wants to play in St. Louis, so just give me your scraps. They're not being the aggressive front. They're waiting until the final minute when a team says, well, we got to do something with this guy, so let's just ship him out. And that's where you get your John Lester. That's where you get, although he was very good for them, the Jose Quintana. And that's why it's hard for me to believe that at this trade deadline, even with the surge that this team has gone on, that this team is convincing themselves that they need to upgrade over Kyle Gibson and Miles Mikolas. I think this team is convincing themselves that they need to just upgrade over Lance Lynn. They've got Game 1 starter, Sonny Gray. Game 2 starter, Kyle Gibson. Game 3 starter, Miles Mikolas. Game 4, let's just go get somebody who could do that if we get there.
Yeah, and I can't believe that they would get to a point where they couldn't say Eovaldi and Fetty would be too high for them. Because you're right, it's not going to cost them a lot. Even Eovaldi would not be that much, because Eovaldi's basically operating on like a 1-year rental type deal. Yeah. Because he has got a player option that vests here shortly, so you have to treat it like a 1-year deal because he can opt out at the end of the contract. It would be, if you're going to look below that, you might as well just not invest in that team. You know, you might as well not go out and give up prospects for a number 4 starter. Like, it doesn't help you much because you're not using the number 4 starter that much in October. And if you're going to go with Mikolas and Gibson as your 2-3, I'm sorry, you're not going anywhere in October. Might as well not. And when Katie said, like, they're waiting to see what they have with the team still before they can kind of determine who's unavailable, what are you waiting for? Like,
Tommy Edman?
The offense isn't going to hit left-handed pitching suddenly. Goldy and Arenado are Goldy and Arenado. This is who they are. Your pitching's healthy, and it's clear you still have a hole, which is a number 2 starter. And you need a bullpen arm. Like, your 3 things is you need a right-handed bat for the lineup, or at least off the bench.
Can I push back on that? I don't think they do.
I think they need somebody as a right-handed bat off the bench for lefties.
I
would want somebody
That's
start him
why
in
I
center.
asked Katie. I don't know where you're playing him. You can't start anybody in center.
This
You need
mythical
Siani.
creature that we think makes sense for the Cardinals. I don't know where they're fitting into the roster. That's the hard part for me. Is I guess it becomes a Ivan Herrera here, because Ivan Herrera could be the bat that you're talking about. He could be that right-handed bat off of
Or
the
I would
bench
imagine
that comes in and
T-Bone has brought this up, Lane Thomas, but you're really playing Lane Thomas over Donovan, Siani, or
there's
Lars
no
Nootbaar?
scenario where he's getting pinch hits over them.
You're losing if
scenario.
you're taking Siani out of center field for how this pitching staff pitches.
The only scenario where he is getting a pinch hit opportunity would be for Siani late in a game. But at that point, I'll just go to Ivan Herrera in those spots. I don't think Lane Thomas is enough of an upgrade offensively over Ivan Herrera to where I need to trade a prospect and carry that guy on my roster when the only opportunities he's going to be getting is a very, very rare occasional pinch hit. The scenario where it would make sense is if you're trading Ivan Herrera in a deal for a pitcher, and now I do need another right-handed hitter on my bench, sure, then go for it. But right now, as currently constructed, I don't think right-handed hitter is a significant need for them. I would like a right-handed hitter that actually hits. I would like Nolan Arenado or Paul Goldschmidt to become those guys. But that's what you need. You need one of your big right-handed bats to actually produce like a big right-handed bat. I don't think they need a right-handed bench bat.
I do. I think they need one because I think what they're going to if this is how they are operating, and that is what you said, where Katie's reporting what the team is doing, it's because they don't trust Herrera as that bat. And I would understand that against lefties, because against lefties, he's 15% below league average this season. Meanwhile, and I don't know if Lane Thomas is the guy. They're probably not targeting him because he's got another year of control, so he would cost quite a bit.
I just don't know who,
971 OPS against lefties.
Or maybe Katie's under the assumption that Ivan Herrera might need to be the trade chip that gets you your pitcher.
It's possible.
And that's why you need to go out there and get that bench bat that you don't have Ivan Herrera anymore.
But if Ivan Herrera is that trade chip, it's a good one. Let's not understate what Ivan Herrera is as an asset right now in Major League Baseball. That's a good trade chip to have. That's aiming for somebody like a Nathan Eovaldi or an Eric Fetty. Those are the kinds of pitchers that suddenly become available for you. If you're trading Ivan Herrera, a ready-made Major League catcher with a good bat who, yes, he does have a lack of an arm right now, but defensively behind the plate, he's fine otherwise. You just have to improve the arm, and that can happen over time if you have that time to get there. I would not be trading him for any of the pitchers that she's suggesting that they would potentially be in on. The guy that continues to make all the sense in the world for them, and I don't like it, despite the ERA, is Tyler Anderson. Tyler Anderson is 34 years old. He's a left-handed pitcher. Every underlying metric suggests this is going to come back down to earth. He's going to be more of a 4.5 ERA in the second half of the season than the 2.8 ERA that he's been so far this year. His velocity has dipped in a meaningful way. He doesn't have strikeout stuff. He walks more batters than you'd like. Nothing about this says this is a really good starter, except for the ERA. You look at the ERA and it's 2.8.
Oh.
Well, how do I argue against that, right? Other than literally everything else. Everything else suggests this is completely unsustainable. Batting average on balls in play, which is a nerdy number, but it's basically when you put the ball in play, how often is it a hit? 229. That's unsustainable. It's not going to continue. It's just not. He doesn't get weak enough contact on a consistent basis. That's going to be the type of guy that they probably end up trading for. If, however, Alex, I told you, you can aim high. It's probably unrealistic, but Alex, when you look at what you would like the Cardinals to do at the deadline, who is your ideal, within reason, your ideal trade acquisition this year at the deadline?
I mean, the more we've talked about it, mine would be Nathan Eovaldi. I think that's ideal because that dude is a playoff performer. And if we're talking about a number 2 pitcher that you're looking for, I understand he probably doesn't profile as a number 2 starter. He's 36 years old, which matches the identity of this team. But I know and when the brights are the lightest, can go out there and win you a baseball game when you need it. So that would be ideal scenario that I do believe is likely because there are a lot that I know everybody's throwing names out there, but I just don't think you're going to pull those off. Nathan Eovaldi would be the one for me because I need a playoff performer as my number 2 starter.
Yeah, I like the Eovaldi one to go different. I don't know how reasonable it is, but he's got another year of control, and he kind of fits into that conversation. And he's different from Eric Fetty, because Fetty's another one that I'm sure we'll throw out here. But I think this is a name that would get the fan base excited. Could be wrong. Is Chris Bassett. If Toronto goes to sell Chris Bassett, Chris Bassett over the last last 4 seasons, so 21 to this year, has been 20% above league average, and he's been basically a guy that starts 30 games and has a 3.4 ERA. Like, he's the perfect guy that comes in and is like right there with Kyle Gibson. 2-3 guy. Yeah, exactly. And I think he's the perfect guy that would make sense for the Cardinals because he kind of fits the profile they like. For sure. Has some swing and miss, but also keeps the ball on the ground, and he's under control for another year after this season.
I like Chris Bassett. I'd be fine with it. I think it would be a good move. A really good move. It's a slightly better version of Kikuchi.
35 years old. Again, matches the profile of this team.
A lot of what they kind of look for at it.
Not a playoff performer, though.
Even better.
How often has he been in the playoffs?
Well,
he was with Oakland.
In 2020, it was great, but in 2022, 4 innings and gave up 3 earned runs and 3 walks on top of it.
3 career playoff starts. Okay. And he's pitched 15 innings, 18 hits, 7 earned runs, 11 strikeouts, a 4.2 ERA.
And to be fair to Eric Fetty, he hasn't really seen the playoffs very much. Or not Eric Fetty, Chris Bassett. He hasn't seen the playoffs very much in his career. So
my guy would be Nathan Eovaldi. Big game pitcher. Yep. We've seen it before. We know what that dude can do when he's on a big stage. He's amazing. He pitches like a number 1. Like, he was the number 1 starter last year for the Texas Rangers in for a team that won the World Series. You look back at what he did with Boston. Big game starter for them as well. So he's got the pedigree. He's got the gumption to be able to be in those moments and to not melt down. If he can't go that high, I've mentioned it before, Eric Fetty's a guy that has another year of control. He makes all the sense in the world for what this team needs. No, he's probably not your prototypical number 2. He's a number 3, and he could pitch as a number 2 for you this year because he's better than what else you have. Those would be my 2. If you were going to reach, I've seen a lot of people bring up Max Scherzer. I'm not interested. Am I crazy for that? He's been really good since coming back from the IL for Texas. He's been really good for them. I'm always wondering with him, is he going to be healthy in the playoffs? And I think the Cardinals have too much uncertainty behind him to where if he got hurt right before you get into the postseason, you're screwed.
Here's why.
So I think there's too much risk there.
Here's why I would say I'm not interested. What's the cost? Because if we're talking a lot in terms of what you're paying to get him, then I'm not interested. If you could get him for...
I think it's going to be a decent cost.
And that's like, if you could get him for less than what you're expecting, it is Max Scherzer, but it's also a 39-year-old Max Scherzer. Absolutely. And Texas is thinking, like, what can we get?
1-year deal, if I'm not mistaken.
I wonder if you pay less for him than Nathan Eovaldi. Because it's 39 years old, you got like half of a season of him. I would take a flyer on that, because if we're going to compare Nathan Eovaldi to being a playoff performer,
I would rather have Nathan Eovaldi than Max Scherzer for this specific team. I don't think he's a better pitcher than Max Scherzer. I think for what you need on this team and the certainty that comes with Nathan Eovaldi, I would rather have Nathan Eovaldi because I'm confident that he's going to be available for me. Yeah. I can't have that confidence about Max Scherzer, dude. We've been going like 4 straight years now of Max Scherzer not being the guy that you expected him to be once you get to the postseason.
It'll sting, though, if he does get traded and you watch him perform on the playoffs for somebody else.
Of course. But
that's the move that gets people excited.
Yeah,
I think Nathan Eovaldi should really get people excited. The last time that Max Scherzer has 1 start since 2019 in the postseason of more than 5 innings. 1.
Yeah.
I saw last year Nathan Eovaldi go out there and shove in the postseason. Mm-hmm. One of these guys is a better option for the Cardinals, in my opinion, than the other. Max Scherzer was not the same dude with the Dodgers in the postseason. He did not have a good playoff start for the Mets in 2022. He did not have the same kind of success last year in the postseason. I think, T-Bone, you were talking about having him off the roster because you just couldn't have him go out there consistently. He wasn't that dude anymore. He's not the same Max Scherzer that we think of. He's been effective so far. It's a very small sample size. I don't trust it. Yeah. I don't trust it for this team with what they need. If they were going to get 2 starters, go do it.
Oh, yeah,
go do it. Because now
you're
aiming for upside.
Yeah.
But if you're just getting 1, can't do it.
And I think Eovaldi will cost more than Scherzer, because now Eovaldi is kind of a rental type, as we talked about. But when you think about Scherzer, 1, Scherzer, rental. 2, has trade protection, so he can control where he's going. And 3, the injury history. Yeah, it's Max bleeping Scherzer. It's also old Max Scherzer. When I look at Eovaldi, you've got the recency success. I think Eovaldi's going to be more sought after than Max Scherzer is. And I think part of that's just because there's only limited markets that Scherzer can go to.
Yep. I would just rather have Eovaldi. And I know that sounds crazy because Max Scherzer, future Hall of Famer, one of the best pitchers that I have ever seen in my lifetime. I love Max Scherzer. Given what the Cardinals need right now, it could be the move that they're going to make going into this year.
Jose Kikuchi.
Coming up next, everything about the Blues. Immediate outlook hinges on their second line center. We'll talk about it here on 101 ESPN.
Terrence near the Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals beat the Nationals yesterday 6-0 as they take 3 of 4 from Washington. Tonight they were supposed to start a 2-game set with the Kansas City Royals, but tonight's game has been officially postponed. They'll play a day-night split doubleheader tomorrow, with the first game being at 12:45. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
With Alex and T-Bone on BK. So Jeremy Rutherford's going to join us in about 20 minutes or so here on BK and Ferrario. He had a piece earlier today breaking down what he believes will be the opening night projected lineup for the St. Louis Blues. Alex, the top line was as anticipated. Neighbors, Thomas, and Kyrou. Your fourth line, Joseph, Sonny, Kapanen. I don't think we're going to have much pushback on either of those two. Right?
I'd have Matthew Joseph in the third line, but yeah, you can do whatever you want with that.
Sure.
Bottom six.
The middle six is where things get interesting. He's got Saad, Buch, and Shin. And then as the third line, Toropchenko, Faksa, and then one of Texier or Bolduc, depending on what happens with Bolduc and if he earns his way onto this roster. Alex, to me, when I saw this projected lineup, my eyes immediately went to, and this has been the case for a while now, that number 2 center position.
Yep.
Because I don't want Pavel Buchnevich playing center. I don't think you get the best out of him. I don't think it's the best use out of a really good player is to put him in the middle where he's... I don't think the same quality of player as he is when he's on the wing. However, I don't know that you have a great alternative as I look at these names that are listed in front of me. The alternative is Dalibor Dvorsky.
Right.
And then it just becomes a question of, is he ready? If he's ready, great, put him into the lineup. No harm, no foul. Let's see what it looks like. If he's not ready, that's where things could become really difficult. To you, Alex, how would you project the opening night lineup? And do you think it would look pretty similar to this?
I don't. I think it would look different. I would not have Buch as my centerman. You can't afford to have Buch as your centerman. The way that I would adjust that lineup is to have Kyrou on your second line and Buch and Neighbors on your top line. Buchnevich needs to be a winger for you because you need him to be a 30-plus goal scorer. And if you look at who he was in his first year with the Blues, 30 goals, 76 points. He was a plus 29 and played 18 minutes and 18 seconds average a game. And in the last 2 years, he's been used as centerman a little bit more. You've used him almost 90 seconds more per game. And his goals, although they're close to 30, they've dipped 26 and 27. Some of those have been injury related. But then you look at the plus minus, it's gone down a little bit. Plus 14, then a plus 3. You need Buch, and you re-signed Buch to be who he was in that first season. If he's not a 30 to 35 goal scorer, well, now you're asking Kyrou to be a bigger goal scorer. You're asking Jake Neighbors to score more goals because you need him at center. What I would do is if Dvorsky makes this camp, I still wouldn't even have him as my centerman because I don't know if you could put him into the fire that fast in your second line. I would start it as Braden Shen and then adjust from there. And if Dvorsky makes the squad, now we can talk about being the third line centerman and you could put a Brandon Saad, somebody with him there. To me, I start the year with Braden Shen as my centerman, and if that does not look good like it looked like last year, then I start to go to alternatives. How does Dvorsky look throughout the season? Does he look ready? Can we put Buch there? If you put Buch as the centerman, I think you're massively taking a blow to your offense because you need him.
I know that Shen, there's been a lot of injury stuff, and there's more of a toll that gets put onto your body. By the way, he's played 82 games each of the last 2 years, which is kind of amazing.
And most of the time injured.
Yeah. There's just more that's put onto your plate physically, mentally, emotionally, everything as a center. This team kind of needs him to be that. And I'm not telling you that it's fair, and I don't know if it's the best use of him long term, but until Dvorsky can be truly ready to be a number 2 center, as I look at this lineup, man, I think you have no other choice. Like if I'm in Drew Bannister's shoes and I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, okay, what am I doing opening night? I think Braden Shen has to be my number 2 center, and I work around there. I'm going Thomas, I'm going Shen, I'm going Fox, and I'm going Sonny.
Yeah.
And if that gets changed, if Dvorsky's ready to go and I think he's a center long term and I want him to play center on opening night, then I'm moving Fox down. And I'm putting him as my third line center, and I've got Shen as my number 2 center, and I've got Dvorsky as my number 3 center. And if he proves he's ready to be the number 2, great. Now I can move Shen to the wing.
Yeah.
But until that happens, I just don't see a scenario where you can have Buch. I think they need Shen as their second line center.
and I hope I might be proven wrong with this upcoming season, but to me, I'm making last year an outlier for Braden Shen the same way I made Colton Parayko a couple of years ago an outlier, because I think there was more on Braden Shen's plate last season on top of the injuries with the captaincy, with the Craig Berube firing, and with the team being in shambles. That weighs on a person. And then the injuries take in and he wasn't the same guy. I'm expecting more of a Braden Shen from what he was in that 2021-2022 season, where he was a 24-goal scorer, 58 points, but he was playing almost 18 minutes a night, probably a little bit more than that, and you were taking all the faceoffs as a centerman. And if you look at who he played with that season, you also have to take that into consideration. He was playing with Ivan Barbashev and Jordan Kyrou. That's why I would have Kyrou as my second-line winger with Neighbors and Booch and Thomas, because Shen and Kyrou obviously work together. We've seen it enough times now. We need to stop trying to force Kyrou and Thomas together and keep Shen and Kyrou together as a pair, and then you put somebody on that wing with them that can work, that can build chemistry. You got to give it a shot. And if it looks like last year with Braden Shen a month into the season, then you assess where you're at. How is Booch doing as a goal scorer? Do we need to shift him over there? Can Dalibor Dvorsky be a centerman for us in this position? What does Radek Faksa looks like? Those are all equations that I can pick up as the season goes on, but I'm starting the year with Braden Shen as my centerman, and then I'm building from there.
I think we know who your top six is. I think we know who the six players are that are going to be in your top six. It's Neighbors, Thomas, Kyrou, Booch, Shen, Saad.
Yep.
Those are the six.
I agree.
And it just becomes a question of where do they play. And I don't want Booch to be at center. Like, full stop. That's it. I think Booch is a winger. I think he knows he's a winger. I think he wants to play on the wing. I think he feels that he's the best at the wing. I think you're going to get the most out of Booch when he feels like he's playing his best. And so for all of those reasons and so many more, like the fact that you just paid him $8 million and you need him to be healthy.
Absolutely.
And he's younger than Braden Shen. And he's a bigger part, honestly, of your future than Braden Shen is at this point in time. Like, for all of those reasons, Booch needs to be on the wing.
Yeah.
And you figure out, okay, what is the best way to get the most out of Booch? Is it on the top line? Is it on the second line? I don't really care, honestly. I don't have as big of a delineation between the two as many. You just need top-line production out of him, regardless of where he's playing. And so if that means Braden Shen as a center, great. If that means Faksa as a center, fine. If that means Dvorsky as his center, cool. I don't care. I just know he ain't it. I know he's not the center. That's the thing that I am very firm on.
I think the Blues are trying to tell you they know Shen's not the center either. You know, if they are going to go with him as a winger and Booch as the center, tells me they know that Shen can no longer be whether it be top 6 or top 9 center, and the best way for them to maximize him, for everything you just said of Buchnevich and trying to maximize that player, and I agree, he's more of the future than Shen is. Yep. They're saying the same thing about Braden Shen. What they're telling you right now is they don't have a guy that can center a second line unless it's Dvorsky, but they have to throw somebody in that spot, so what do? Do you go with Pavel Buchnevich more as the stopgap guy, or do you go with Braden Shen, who's going to get beat up in that position and then take down his playing ability from 100% probably down to like 70% of Braden Shen, like you seen the last season?
And it really comes down to what Braden Shen, and I think it's going to start there. Does Shen feel like durability-wise he's better off playing wing so he can be ready to go from beginning to end of the season, or does he feel like that he can handle the center position? It's not like
I think you need to have that conversation of we need you to do this. Yeah, I think it's less about what do you think is best and more about we think this is best for the team from you.
Well, and I'm sure that's the conversation, but I don't think he's been beaten up because he's done the center position. I just think he's been beaten up because of the workload he's had to take on and the players that he's played with. You need a little bit more.
I think he just plays a physical game. Yeah. Like some of this is the style that Braden Shen plays, and so we should have probably expected him to get hurt as he gets older.
And I don't know if that style continues. Like I know that they want to be big, and I know they want to have puck possession, but I don't know if they want to play physical the way that Craig Berube wanted to play. That remains to be seen with Bannister. I just go off of pairs. It's Ken Hitchcock used to say it all the time. You look at pairs with line mates. It used to be O'Reilly and Perron, Thomas and Tarasenko. The pairs to me are Thomas and Booch and Shen and Kyrou, and then I adjust from there. And that's where I build my wingers on both sides.
Alex, we talked a little bit before the show today because Jeremy Rutherford, who's going to be joining us in just a little bit, was asked by The Athletic about the biggest remaining offseason need for the Blues, biggest need that remains for them. And he said it's to trade a defenseman. He also added, it's unlikely. For you, if you look at this lineup up and down, what do you think is the biggest remaining need for the Blues?
A top 4 left-handed defenseman. And maybe that's internal. Maybe you believe that you have some untapped potential with Scott Perunovich there. But you need somebody in the place of Torrey Krug on JR's lineup projections, because to me, that position is still your weakest link. Letty and Parayko, I think, were fine last year. I think they're good enough for you to stay competitive in games. Justin Falk, I think there's an outlier there. We'll see what that looks like if he stays healthy, if he's back to who he was, or if this is who he was. And then your third pair, if it's Falk or Kessel and Tucker or Perunovic, you need somebody in that top 4 spot. And I mean, there's still a couple of names out there. The first step, though, would have to be figure out what to do with Torrey Krug. Do you force him into a trade because you say, look, there's no playing time for you. You're going to be in the press box. Do you try the waivers route like you did with Barclay Goodrow, that with the Rangers, and he got picked up, and that forces the trade a little bit? But there are 2 guys that are still out there. One that's on another team and another that's a free agent, Oliver Shillington with the Calgary Flames. And then just today I started looking at Edmonton because they're in a cap hell right now. They've got a 24-year-old left-handed defenseman, Philip Broberg, that I wonder if you could find a way to get away from them. You could go out there and get guys still. But it all comes back to what are you going to do with Torrey Krug, and that, to me, is the first thing that they have to figure out.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone on BK. We'll talk to JR about that coming up in about 10 minutes or so. But coming up next is the Junk Drawer here on 101 ESPN. Hey, with Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley. Alex, yesterday I was talking about how I've got better odds. If you want to bet on Mizzou to win the national championship, you're getting significantly better odds over on the Circa Sports app than you would if you go to FanDuel, for example. They recommend you check out all the odds. You go over to FanDuel, go to DraftKings, see what they have to offer for you. What you're going to find is you will get better odds with the Circa Sports app. Mizzou, 6,500 plus 6,500 over on Circa. They're like plus 1,500 on the FanDuel Sportsbook. There's another bet that I like even more, Alex.
All right.
2-1 Mizzou to make the college football playoff over on the Circa Sports app. That's plus 180 on FanDuel. You're just getting better odds. You're winning more money when you win over on Circa.
Always be looking at those futures, because what I love about Circa is they're not limiting players based off of their winnings. Everyone has the same limits, unlike other sports books. And I love a sports book that basically tells you, go ahead, check out the other ones, because we know you'll come back with our betting odds and our tight money line split. So make sure you download them. They're the exclusive sports betting app for BK and Ferrario. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK. So Alex is a hater. We knew this. This is not a surprise. What I didn't realize is that Alex hates America.
Wow.
And on the 4th of July...
No, that's not it.
He's just shouting from the mountaintop how much he hates America by boycotting fireworks.
This is you do this an awful lot, man. You spin an image of me that's just incorrect. We did this with Tyreek Hill earlier in the week.
You would never do that.
I wasn't happy. No, not at all, Mr. Green Juice right now. I don't hate America. Love America. I don't mind fireworks on the 4th of July, because that's the day that was created for your fireworks. You know what I freaking hate? The people that shoot off fireworks on the 10th of July, the 12th of July, the 1st of July, the 30th of June, and the 31st of July.
I thought I was going to disagree with you on this. I have an agreement.
Look, I used to be fine with it. Like, I don't care. Shoot them off all you want. I used to do it when I was a kid, right? Like, the 5th of July is when you get the discounts and you shoot them off as much as possible. But now I got kids. And I don't just have kids that sleep through the night. I have kids that by the slightest noise outside, you have disrupted their routine, and it turns into screaming and crying for the next 45 minutes. And the people that shoot off fireworks, and let me tell you something, it's the people that shoot off the bottle rockets at 11:30 and 12 o'clock at night. That's not loving America. That's just being a nuisance to your neighborhood. So shut the hell up beyond the 4th of July, or stop shooting them off by 9 o'clock.
I feel like you've got a few days. I feel like you've got a few days.
I'll give you July 3rd. I'll give you July 4th. I'll even go 5th and 6th.
I won't do the 6th.
Once we get past depending on if the 6th is like a Tuesday, I'm out. This 6th, it was Saturday. Okay, I'm with you on that. That one you can have. Once we get past that, it's over. You know, no more launching the fireworks, no more of the bottle rockets.
Stop shooting them off at 11:30 at night.
I got to see them when it's nice and dark.
You can see them at 9 o'clock at night.
Not dark enough, dude.
And you can't even see the damn bottle rockets. It's not even the pretty fireworks. It's just a...
That's a fair point.
That was fun.
That one's fair.
Okay. So one thing that I have learned, though, did you guys know that O'Fallon gets, like, legitimate bands to play for their Heritage in Freedom Festival?
No.
Like, you can't shoot off fireworks?
No.
Because goodbye, moving to O'Fallon.
They have this Heritage and Freedom Festival that they do every year for the 4th of July. And this is where we went this year to watch the fireworks. They had Bret Michaels performing.
Hell yeah.
I had no idea this was a thing. Apparently in the past they've had Styx. They had Smash Mouth. Now, most of these are like washed up or like C-list celebrities.
Do not call Smash Mouth washed up.
Cheap Trick out there a couple of years ago, which just performed with Def Leppard recently.
I would have loved Smash
They
Mouth.
must be watching.
Tell
I
me
don't know
something-
anybody he's just said.
Tell me not something more.
You don't know Bret Michaels?
I don't think so.
Poison? What?
You know,
Nothing but a good time?
you're familiar with Poison. That's like the kind of music that you
The
listen to.
band Poison.
Well, that
Yeah,
was
he's
Bret
the front
Michaels.
man.
The voice you hear is Bret Michaels.
Oh,
Hey, didn't you
I
ever
didn't know
watch
that.
the Love show on VH1 of Bret
God, it was
Michaels?
so bad.
God, that was awful. There's nothing more American than watching fireworks on the 4th of July and hearing, hey, now you're an all-star.
Yeah.
So you shoved that to sit there and say that
Oh,
they're
no, I
washed
loved
up.
it. We went, I think that was like 2018, 2019, something like that. I just didn't know they were consistently getting these kinds of routines. It's impressive.
old and washed up.
Hey, come on.
Dude, we walked up and I heard Bret Michaels. I was like,
Yeah, cover
Is that
band,
Bret
nice.
they're like, yeah, he's headlining the show. I was like,
Poor
what?
Bret Michaels,
Why
man.
is he in O'Fallon on the 4th of July?
He's trying to find
doing
love.
a show.
He's trying to find
Rock
love
of
right
Love,
now.
man. You remember the Flavor of Love?
Flavor of Love, and then who was the Ray J?
Oh, I didn't watch that
Ray J. Well, I didn't watch it either. I just know that there was Ray J trying to find love. Everybody's trying to find love on VH1. And I don't
Travis
think
Kelce, Catching Kelsey. He had another
none
show.
of those girls had success either. It was all Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Way to go, man.
He decided to aim a little higher.
T-Bone, we should call VH1, man. It could be T-Bone finding love.
Oh.
Or
I
we
don't
could just do
believe
it on
this.
BK and Ferrario weekly in the fall.
I so badly want to do
I
that.
do too, man.
Coming up next, Jeremy Rutherford here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you and with my insurance agent, Tracy Bibb, her team at Allstate. I'm sure working the phones right now, Tracy, with all of this rain. My sister actually just suffered from this a couple of days ago. Flooding is a problem right now.
It really is, and a lot of people don't realize that on a regular home policy, stuff that is happening right now with all of this water is typically excluded. So if your home is flooding, water coming over your foundation, it's going to be excluded on a regular home policy, and you would need to have a flood policy. That is something that we do in the office. Also, if you have water coming up through a sump pump that maybe is failing, or water coming up through your sewer drain, if you don't have extended coverage and endorsement on your home policy, you're not going to have coverage for these kind of situations. That's where we do things differently at the Bibb Agency. We will sit down with you, go over the coverages, and help you select what best fits your needs.
You get the personal attention that you need for moments like this, and that's why you need to call Tracy Bibb today. 314-328-4260. Tell her that you heard us talk about it here on 101 ESPN, and Tracy will take it from there. It's Tracy Bibb, 314-328-4260. It's no fib. You're always in great hands with the Bibb. Tracy, thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Go Blues.
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Let's go out to the 101 ESPN hotline to be joined by Jeremy Rutherford, the Blues insider for The Athletic. We talked earlier today about his new projection for the opening day lineup for the St. Louis Blues, where he had Pavel Buchnevich as his second-line center. JR, we appreciate the time as always, my friend. What led you to that decision of having him in the middle of Saad and Shin?
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, guys, and thanks for giving me a chance to explain here. You know, a lot of times we're putting our own opinion into these pieces, and to some extent, I guess I did so in this piece, but this is all Doug Armstrong based on what he said the other day, and I kind of set up the piece by saying he shed some light on what the Blues lines could look like. I think it was UBK that asked him about that second-line center, what's the depth chart right now, and he said that he looks at it like Thomas, Buchnevich, Faksa, Sundqvist, and then he said, and of course you got Shen, and then he paused and he said, and Dvorsky. And so you think that Dvorsky, depending on his camp, will have a chance to impress and a chance to show that he belongs on the opening night roster. But just based on Doug Armstrong saying Thomas, Buchnevich, Faksa, Sundqvist is why I went with those four players down the middle. Hey, believe me, if this was just me saying, here's what I would do with the lines, I would have Buchnevich on the wing. I'm going what the GM says here.
I just personally feel like, JR, that if you have Buch at the center position, you are losing a ton of offense on the wing that is, I believe, so crucial for this team, is to have a guy who could be a 35-goal scorer with Robert Thomas's playmaking ability. And if you take that away from the wing, your offense takes a massive blow.
I think so, too. I think that the way you maximize Buchnevich is on the wing. I just think that this experiment with Buch was because the Blues didn't feel in particular that they had somebody who can be a quality second-line center. Now, Shen has done a terrific job. Again, he's played, as you mentioned in the last segment, 82 games the past couple of years. He's eclipsed 20 goals, 7 straight years, 7 of 8. A lot of that production late last year came on the wing when they moved him. So I'm not saying that he can't play center, and I don't disagree with you guys that he could be your number 2 center until Dvorsky's ready or whomever. We're on the same page in terms of Buchnevich, I think, being best suited at wing, but how this team sets up and where they're trying to get to with Dvorsky and with Doug Armstrong, again, mentioning Buch, the second last name out of his mouth when he talked about that second-line center depth. That's the direction that I went.
So I guess that's the other thing that we need to talk about, JR, is Dvorsky. You got to see a little bit of him during the development camp. From talking to people around the Blues and from what you've seen with your own eyes and your reporting behind the scenes as well, what do you think the plan is with Dvorsky heading into training camp, and how close do you think he is to being ready to be on the NHL roster?
Yeah, the two things I heard about Dvorsky, watching him and then talking to people, and we were all out there, were two things. He sounds determined. Everything he says is exactly what Doug Armstrong wanted to hear. He said, this is on me. I've got to show them that I'm ready. I remember asking him at one point, you can't necessarily win a spot in development camp. And he said, I can do whatever I can in any camp to show them that I'm ready to play. So number one, they got a determined player here, which is really good. And two, they've got a stronger player. And that's not to say that he wasn't strong last year. And, of course, you're going to get stronger year to year when you're 18, 19 years old. But the first thing that Tim Taylor, who's now a Blues assistant GM, said, and Doug Armstrong echoed as well, was that I see a stronger player out there. So, obviously, that's going to be good when he gets into camp and he's playing with men instead of the junior hockey circuit. Now, in terms of could he be ready, we're all just guessing at this point. Like, he's going to come to camp. It's going to be a lot different than what we saw in development camp. Sure, it's training camp, so, the veterans are going to be kind of going at their own pace early on. Doug Armstrong always says, wait until you get to the season where you can see when these guys really get up to speed. I think he's got a chance, but the one difference here is he can go to the American Hockey League. We saw a couple years ago with Robert Thomas. It's either NHL back to junior. They decided to keep him at the NHL. Dvorsky is different. He can play in the American Hockey League.
JR, I listened to the Tim Taylor press conference that he held with you guys over the weekend, and just hearing him talk about all of these guys, it sounds like, a couple of them are going to be playing over Europe. You got a lot of guys that'll either be playing in junior hockey or the American Hockey League this year. Is this pipeline closer to the NHL than maybe we originally thought?
I think so because some of them are higher picks, especially when you're talking about Dvorsky, number 10 overall pick. And guys, we've talked about this part of it. With the exception of Tarasenko and Schwartz, the Blues didn't have a top 10, top 12, top 14 pick at forward, for so many years. You had Robert Thomas, but he was early 20s. So when you watch this guy play, you're looking at a top 10 pick in the NHL draft. And I think that's why you see him closer. But then you look at the Otto Stenbergs and the Theo Lindsteins. Granted, they were taken in the 20s, but they just seem further along. And in talking to Tim Taylor, we could have went on for another half hour with him talking about all the prospects who have a shot in the next 2, 3, 4 years. And they're all playing in good programs, good teams in junior hockey, or they're going to college and they're going to play with good college teams. You try to be objective in this situation. You realize that not all these guys are going to hit. But I'm losing track of the number of the good prospects that the Blues have spread out all over the place who are trying to make this team in the next 2, 3, 4 years.
Jeremy Rutherford is our guest for another couple of minutes here on 101 ESPN. Find his work over at The Athletic. That's where you can read his piece projecting the opening night lineup that he has up right now. You can always follow him on Twitter as well, at JP Rutherford. Jer, we did also reference earlier today your piece from The Athletic about the biggest remaining need for the Blues this offseason, and your biggest need was to make a trade from the defensive core. What do you think are the odds of that happening?
Yeah, it's really hard to put the odds, and I know that everybody wants to know what's going to happen with that area. Here's how I break it down. I think that the Blues want to change up the look of their defense. When you have that conversation, somehow it always gets to Torrey Krug, and I understand it. He's not the entire sole issue with the defense, but I think that he's the player that you look to and you say, if you could change that player, I think you're doing a good job in terms of making that defense look different moving forward. Is Torrey Krug willing to waive his no-trade clause? We talked about that a couple weeks ago. I believe there would be an appetite from that if a couple things could happen. The Blues could find a trade partner, and it was a place that Torrey Krug would want to go. That's not breaking any ground there. I think that seems pretty obvious that if they could find the fit and he wanted to go there, they could probably make this happen. But I think also there's a large percentage chance that it doesn't happen this summer. I think Doug Armstrong's going to continue to effort that, but can they find that fit? We don't know. I think internally the Blues believe that there's a pretty good chance that they can come back with the same defense next year, with the exception of, Marco Scandella leaving and Joseph Brother coming in, P.O. Joseph. So, I think that it could look a little bit different potentially. And if Doug Armstrong can make the trade that I think he's been trying to make for 2 years now, with Torrey Krug, we could see a big difference with this group. But it's just hard to handicap because this is a deal that I think Doug Armstrong's been trying to make for a while, and it just comes down to, is there somebody out there that's the right fit?
JR, we saw the Rangers try this a different route where they decided to pass Gaudreau through waivers because he probably wouldn't have waived his no-trade clause to go to San Jose. Is that something that you could see the Blues decide to do eventually is, hey, let's try this. We did the trade route. He nixed it. Do they consider putting a guy like Torrey Krug through waivers? That's the one piece that they have, the one way that they can go about this that they wouldn't be able to if they had a no move with Torrey Krug. Do you think that could be possible?
Yeah, they could, except for here's your hang up there. If a team right now isn't going to take Torrey Krug with a sweetener, which is the Blues adding a draft pick, to take his salary and his salary for the next 3 years, which is $6.5 million. Mm-hmm. He's got a full no trade for 1 more year. It turns to a modified next year. If Doug Armstrong is having trouble pulling off a deal where he's probably adding to the package to try to get you to take Torrey Krug, if that's not happening, then I can't see a team taking him off waivers, taking the contract, and not getting that sweetener. So that's the only hiccup I would see with trying to get him claimed on waivers.
JR, I brought this name up a little bit ago, and I don't know if you can bring in another defenseman if Torrey Krug is still on this roster because you've already got a few guys and you have the salary space, but you don't have the time on ice available to him. But Philip Broberg with the Edmonton Oilers is interesting because they're in a cap hell situation right now, and it's an RFA that they might not have the money to re-sign. He's been stuck in the AHL there forever. Could you see the Blues go after something like that upgrade and forces Torrey Krug to just be in the press box, or do they stay away from that unless they can trade away Torrey Krug?
No, it's an interesting name, and he's a name that I called our Edmonton writer, Daniel Nugent-Hopkins, and talked to him about, and he said, yeah, could be available, tough getting playing time for him here in Edmonton. And then, when it comes to cap hell, you never know what kind of decisions teams are going to make. And I think Doug Armstrong's hinted at that a few times in the past couple of weeks, is that kind of wants to sit back now with this cap space and see if he gets any phone calls with teams who are willing to trade players that he might like, that might fit in with the Blues situation here. And they want to move some cap, or they don't have room for the player. I think we saw that with Foxa and also Matthew Joseph with Ottawa, where they wanted to move the player and the Blues had the cap space. So I think that's why he's not as eager to go spend this money, even though they're in a retool, and I didn't expect them to spend to that $88 million cap. They kind of hinted that they're going to sit back and wait for players potentially to come to them. So I think that's a possibility. But in terms of Torrey Krug, I just can't see, so much term left, 3 years on that deal, that they're going to make a move like that, put him in the press box. I mean, if you're really going to force his hand or try to push him into a situation where he's going to accept a trade, I wouldn't put anything past an NHL team trying to do that with a player. But I just see in this situation, I can't see them with 3 years left on that deal saying, hey, here's the way to the press box.
Hey, JR, we appreciate the time as always, man. You did great work covering all of the craziness that was the last couple of weeks for the St. Louis Blues. We look forward to talking with you again soon. Appreciate the time as always, my man.
Yep, thanks, guys.
You got it. That's Jeremy Rutherford, Blues insider for The Athletic, does excellent work over there at The Athletic, and we certainly always appreciate his time here on BK and Ferrario. My thing with the Torrey Krug, the reason why I even bring up the waivers, Alex, is because there could be potentially teams that would want Torrey Krug at his current price that are not able to get into the conversation because of the no trade. Yeah. If San Jose called the Blues and said, hey, we're interested in trading for Torrey Krug,
they need a power play quarterback.
The Blues would probably have to say, well, unfortunately, Krug doesn't want to play for you, so there's no reason to even negotiate a deal here, a trade, because it's going to get nixed. Krug is, I would assume, they have some idea as to where he would be willing to go, if anywhere. I'm going to go out on a limb and say a guy Torrey Krug's caliber that has played for winners in the past probably doesn't want to move his family to San Jose to play for a team that's doing not a whole lot of winning over the next few years while he's got 3 years left on his contract.
More than likely is going to try and trade him next year when his no trade becomes modified. And that's why I believe
that's where waivers could come into play.
Absolutely.
And a team like that's at the front end of the waivers claim process, do they consider, kind of like what they did with Goudreau, would they claim him and say, okay, we'll take the 3 years and we'll see what we can do.
I think if you're Torrey Krug, though, and this is just me speaking if I'm putting myself in his shoes, I also look at the Blues team right now, and I have to ask myself, I want to go to a winner or a team that has the chance to win before my contract is up and I have to retire, but how likely is that going to happen here in St. Louis? And am I going to get moved next year to a place that I refuse to go to? Yeah. Because now at least I can say, hey, send me here. And then I can get to the place, and then I can let the place know I want to be here for the long term. Those are just the conversations you have to have, and that's why I bring up the Philip Broberg name, because if you know that there's a replacement out there that you feel is a top 4 caliber defenseman that fits your age range, that you can realistically acquire because another team has to give him up for basically picks because they have no cap space, you can go after that right now, but then you're sitting $6.5 million in the press box for one full season,
and
which I'm fine with.
Veteran player that has a say in the locker room, it's tough.
Which causes disruption on the roster, which you can't afford to do for a team in a retool right now.
Kevin Hayes. At least part of the calculus as to why, because he was probably going to be sitting in the press box. Army told us that. Kevin Hayes was not going to be a part of their plan heading into next season, and so it was better for them to get him out of here. Now, we can quibble, I do, about sending a second-round pick to get rid of that money, but that's what you got to do.
Yeah, and that's
why
you don't
want that.
And that's why, the threat of waivers is always there. And look, Armstrong did do this before. It was back with Doug Waite, where he basically told Doug Waite, you're either going to Anaheim for Andy McDonald or you're going to go to the American Hockey League and you're going to play there for the remainder. And Doug Waite was like, yep, sure, send me to Anaheim. Good for me. And they got Andy McDonald in it. So you can do it. It has been done before. But I do believe it also, because hockey is such a tight, knit community, it also puts a little bit of a blurb on that franchise for what you did.
A big-time agent. That's another thing to keep in mind.
And now
you got to use him. You got to talk with him, and you want to negotiate other contracts. He's got other free agents that you potentially will want to negotiate with in the future. You want to do right by the player, but you also have to do right by the team. It's tough.
Yeah,
tough spot to be in.
There's all
with
politics
Alex
with
T-Bone
it.
On BK. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. You give us a scenario, we'll tell you if we are betting it or forgetting it here on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK to tell you about my friends over at Victory Men's Health. The guys just saw I took all of my vitamins for today. I've got my vitamin D, my vitamin B12, my multivitamin as well. They got me hooked up over at Victory Men's Health. They can do the same for you, whether it's vitamins, a vitamin deficiency that you have. They found out I am low on some of my vitamins, so they were able to help me out with those supplements. Maybe it is low testosterone. Maybe it's erectile dysfunction. Maybe you just need a little bit of help with that unwanted weight that you've gained. It's hard to lose sometimes, and they can help you out with that over at Victory Men's Health. So check them out today. They've got 4 great locations across the St. Louis area. You can always check them out as well at victorymenshealth.com. And when you get there, you can click on the Book Now tab on the top right portion of your computer. You put in your name, your email, your phone number. Tell them a little bit about what you've been dealing with, how they can make you the best version of yourself, and they'll help you out over at Victory Men's Health. They're there to unlock your inner champion. They can do it for you today. So don't wait any longer. Check out the 4 great locations and at victorymenshealth.com.
Just broke this microphone.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. You give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are betting it or forgetting it here on 101 ESPN with Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK. Coming up in about 10 minutes or so, we're going to talk about Goldy and Arenado, where they are in the lineup, and if it matters where they bat in the lineup on a regular basis. But Alex, just a little bit ago, Ken Rosenthal was on with Foul Territory. I want to let you hear something that he had to say. I'm going to ask you a Bet It or Forget It based upon this quote.
They have other major league pieces that they will be able to move because of their injured players coming back. Newt Barr came back last night. Ivan Herrera, the catcher, is about to come back, and then they're expecting Tommy Edmonds sometime after the break. He's been out all year with a wrist thing. Who knows how that's going to go? But they have the ability, as you mentioned, to trade a Dylan Carlson, to trade a Herrera, and do some things in that way to get what they want. Now, what should they want? They're left-handed, too left-handed. They want some right-handed hitting. Obviously, Goldschmidt and Arenado succeeding in a better way would really impact that. And also a starting pitcher. It's going to be interesting to see how they approach that.
T-Bone's thinking 2 or 3 starting pitchers.
Bet it or forget it, the biggest Cardinals deadline acquisition will be a right-handed bat.
Forget it. It can't be a right-handed bat because the right-handed bat you're getting is going to be a bench bat with the exception of maybe some playing time here. Who is he playing over on this roster?
I don't know.
Maybe one of your outfielders, but now you're taking a massive blow. I think that's Burleson. Unless you're trading
what they
Newt
could
Barr.
do, I'd have to look at what Gorman's numbers are against lefties. I don't think they've been very good this year. Could do then is you move Donia to second, Burley into the outfield and DH the right-handed bat that you acquire.
Okay, but
Or
now
he plays in. I think what they're hoping for is a right-handed bat that can play center field.
But you can't play a right-handed bat in center field because Siani has to be playing out there.
Well,
so maybe
I don't
left
think they
field.
want him. I don't think they want Siani playing against lefties.
You know
I
who's
think
been
they
their
want to
best
platoon
hitter
him.
against lefties this year?
Isn't it Marp?
It's Goldie.
But
Well, not with
He's
runners
been
in
good,
scoring position.
285 batting average and 20% above league average offensively. Burleson has been terrible against lefties.
There you go.
Terrible.
Yeah, so that's the guy you're coming out
195
with.
batting average, no power whatsoever. That might be the guy that ends up losing playing time.
Okay, but then the next question is, who are you acquiring? Like, who's going to move the needle for a right-handed
don't
bat? Like, you going to get Randy Arozarena?
By the way, an amendment of the qualified hitters, Goldie's number one. Of all of your hitters, Contreras has been your best hitter against lefties, which is what you probably
I still say forget it. This team knows they need to upgrade pitching, although I'm not so sure, actually, if they know that they need to upgrade their pitching. But I'm going to forget it.
Yeah, I'll forget it, too, because I think the name they get, I'm still going to hold out faith that they end up going for like a Fetty or an Evaldi, someone of that ilk, and that person will be a bigger addition than the right-hand bat they bring in. The right-hand bat that they bring in is probably a guy that you see contenders acquire and you go, oh, you don't think about it until he performs well in October. You go, they got him for nothing? Like he's 5% above league average.
Man, I want to say forget this.
Go get Pete Alonso.
It seems
and I'm
crazy to me that this would even be an option for them. But the more I hear people that are clearly tight, like Ken Rosenthal knows stuff. Katie Wu knows stuff. These are people that are plugged into the organization, that are plugged into the industry in general, and they have a good idea as to what the Cardinals are looking for because they talk to other teams, and the Cardinals are in conversations with these other teams, yes, even right now, a few weeks away from the deadline, saying, hey, here's probably what we're going to be in the market for. And the Cardinals appear to be telling everybody that, well, listen, we are in the market for a right-handed bat, which makes sense, theoretically speaking.
Maybe you're going after both in one trade. Maybe you're going to try to make a big trade and get a starting pitcher and a right-handed bat, and you're using somebody off of your major league roster.
I guess if you're going to trade Ivan Herrera, you better get a really good right-handed bat. Like if that's the move, if it's Herrera for a bat, that bat better be freaking awesome.
Maybe they're going to get Luis Robert and Eric Fetty.
Yeah, maybe. Probably not.
Herrera,
I'm gonna
Carlson,
forget it.
Nootbaar.
But the more I hear about this, the more confused that I get about what their deadline plans actually are. Alex, what do you got?
Guys, better to forget it. Craig Berube wins the Jack Adams Award this year in the NHL. Do you guys want to know who the betting odds are to win the Jack Adams Award, best coach, according to Circa Sports Illinois?
Is he seriously the favorite?
No, he's not. He's he's the fourth favorite, but this is my victory lap right now. Sheldon Keefe.
He's number one?
Sheldon Keefe has the best odds. It's plus 700.
Well, you know how this is, right? It's who was disappointing last year that could be good this year. Especially when there's a change at coach, because then you just attribute the change to that coach.
Shut up, man.
No, I'm not telling you you're wrong, but it's crazy.
When Sheldon Keefe lists that Jack Adams Award and his team gets bounced in the first round of the playoffs, boy, I'm taking my victory lap. But better to forget it. Craig Berube, he's 10-1 odds right now to win the Jack Adams Award with Toronto this year.
It's typically a team that kind of surprises. I just think it's going to be hard. I don't think Berube's value comes in the regular season.
I totally agree. I totally agree.
I don't think much changes for them in the regular season. I think they're going to look pretty similar. Maybe even stylistically they look a little different, but I think where you see the difference is potentially in the playoffs. That's where his value comes in. So I'm going to say forget it. I don't think he ends up winning the Jack Adams.
Can I tell you who I think is going to get it? It's the head coach in Utah.
Drew. Oh.
No, not Drew Bannister. Sorry, buddy. Andre
Yeah.
Turini. The only reason why is because that team has no expectations, and the moves that they've made are better.
It's exactly the one that typically wins it.
Yeah, I would forget it, too. I'm with you guys. I think Berube, where he's at, the only way that it's going to be viewed as I don't even say viewed as a success, but where his value in the higher comes is in the playoffs.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to be in the regular season because they were good in the regular season under Sheldon Keefe.
And that upsets BK, because the regular season matters. It's poetry,
I'm sorry,
It's
Brandon.
poetry.
Well, when you get bounced in the playoffs the way that they have in recent seasons, I do think it's
kind of like the
different.
Cardinals that get bounced in wild cards and
very
can't win
different.
games.
If you're winning, basically getting to the President's Trophy in the regular season, if the Cardinals were consistently winning the Dodgers are the better comparison. If you're consistently winning 100 games during the regular season and then getting bounced in the postseason, that's when I think it starts to get like, okay, come on.
Kind of like how the Cardinals offense has been so good in the regular season of years past, but then they go quiet in the postseason, and you're like, oh, what happened?
My favorite listing on the odds for Coach of the Year, Jack
Drew
Adams
Bannister.
Award, is Columbus Blue Jackets, where it just says
Head coach.
Columbus Blue Jackets Game 1 head coach. It doesn't even say head coach. It says specifically Game 1 because they know there's a decent chance he gets fired midseason as well.
Brutal.
Bannister, by the way, 45-1. Only coaches with worse odds are Rick Tocchet and Jim Montgomery. It's because they have really high expectations, so the odds are
taking those odds.
Guys, bet it or forget it. Both Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado will finish the season with an OPS below 700, which is where they are today.
Both of them?
Yeah.
I'll forget it.
I think one of them will finish above 700, and that's not me saying that they're going to get super hot.
I think it's Goldy.
700 is essentially league average this year, and I think one of them will at least get to slightly above league average.
So, I do too. I think Goldy will be the one. I don't think Arenado gets there.
Right now, Arenado's closer, right?
Yeah, he's at 693, and Paul Goldschmidt, who everybody feels more confident about, is at 662. I'm going to say forget it. I don't think either will.
So you're going to bet it.
Or, bet it.
Neither of them will get there. Paul Goldschmidt, by the way, still hitting the ball hard.
Yeah, but what's he doing with runners in scoring position, BK?
Nothing. Literally nothing, and we'll get to that here in just a little bit.
I was thinking of this when he homered yesterday. Like, what's he on pace for, home run-wise? Yeah, is it like 25? Because, as much as we've talked about Goldie and that OPS is low, he's currently on pace for 22 home runs. He gets hot for a week and hits 3 bombs. He could be a 25 home run guy, and we still look at his season.
It's the doubles that are really down. He's got 13 doubles so far this year.
Come on.
It's hot here in St. Louis, so it's hard to get those doubles, you know?
Sure. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. Guys, bet it or forget it, the Cardinals will end up getting involved in the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. sweepstakes.
Oh, forget it.
Yeah, forget it.
You've seen what the ceiling of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is, and I don't think there's any more upside with it.
And
would you be willing to trade Jordan Walker for Vlad Guerrero?
Absolutely not.
Same.
I think Guerrero's overrated. I do not. I have no.
I know what Guerrero Jr. is. We've seen it at the major league level for multiple years. I still don't know what Jordan Walker is. I'll take my chances on the mystery box over giving me the boat.
Bet it or forget it. Between Krug, Falk, and Letty, one of them will not be on the roster on night 1 of the regular season. Bet it or forget it. One of them will be traded, put through waivers, whatever. One of them will be removed from the roster before night 1. I'm forgetting it. I think they will all be here.
I hate it for Torrey Krug because it's always go to his name, but I think you're only talking about Torrey Krug. Letty and Falk are going to be here.
I agree.
It's Torrey Krug, and the opportunities are out there, especially with your cap space and teams that are up against it with cap and with a lot of rosters that could shift, but I don't see him doing anything with Torrey Krug unless he's willing to go to another team.
Yeah, I'm forgetting it as well. I just don't think they're going to be able to move him, and they're going to have to add a first-round pick to get him out of town, and I don't see them doing that.
Bet it or forget it, Contreras ends the season with the most home runs on the Cardinals. I'm forgetting this one. Too much ground to make up. He's at 9 right now. Gorman at 17.
Yeah, but we know Gorman's going to go through a cold spell for a whole month. Well, he'll do another one.
8 ahead.
Hey, man, we'll go through another cold spell. I'll bet it. I think Wilson Contreras just tears it up the rest of the season.
I'll forget it. I'm still hoping for 40 from Gorman.
That ain't happening, buddy.
He'll get to 33.
Just better hope that month-long drought it provides some pop.
He's not going cold again all year. Then he'll get to 40.
Okay, I'll forget that one.
Coming up next, Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado. They're going to be in the lineup every day. We know that. Does it matter where they hit? Well, there's a statistic that I found this morning that I think indicates it matters. We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends at Classic Air Care, taking care of our home, making people comfortable since 1926. And with the heat over these last few weeks, of course, it's nice to know that we've got the air conditioner taking care of us. And that's what Classic Air Care has always been able to handle. My dad has used them for the longest time at his home, part of the maintenance program. I've used it in multiple homes since 2016, and there are hundreds of reviews talking about the customer service, the knowledge knowledgeable technicians and the ability to take care of their HVAC system, whether it's brand new or whether it's almost 30 years old like mine was until it finally RIP'd and it had to get a new one, which they've got financing options over at Classic Air Care if you're in the market for that. But you can also check out those reviews like I mentioned. Joseph, Dan was wonderful, knowledgeable technician who was there on time when he told me he was and was able to fix our solution in a matter of minutes. 10 stars, even if 5 is the highest. So check out Classic Air Care today. Tell them Alex Ferrario sent you and get with the people that, again, have been making people comfortable since 1926. That's Classic Air Care and ClassicAirCare.com.
Terry Hendricks Near Day Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals beat the Nationals yesterday 6-0 as they take 3 of 4 from Washington. They were supposed to return home tonight to take on the Kansas City Royals, but tonight's game has been postponed due to rain. They have a split doubleheader tomorrow starting at 12:45. This Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
All right, so Alex has been harping on the Cardinals' lack of hitting with runners in scoring position all season long. He was right about it. It's a problem. They need to be better. The best players on the team when it comes to hitting with runners in scoring position so far this year, and there are actually many of them who are succeeding in this regard. Lars Nootbaar's been great in those spots so far this year. Wilson Contreras has been fantastic. A guy that surprisingly is doing pretty well. It's a very limited sample size, but Pedro Paez has been contributing in a big way with runners in scoring position.
I hear that name. I think MVP.
Donovan's been good. You know who's hitting .320 with runners in scoring position this year? Dylan Carlson. Now, it's the only time he gets hits, but he has produced sometimes with runners in scoring position.
That's your pinch hitter off the bench.
And then Alec Burleson is hitting 280 in those spots with a pretty decent amount of power. All of those guys above league average offensively when hitting with runners in scoring position overall this season. Now, the guys that aren't, Nolan Arenado, Nolan Gorman, Paul Goldschmidt, they are really bad hitting with runners in scoring position.
In all fairness to Nolan Gorman, it really comes down to, what month you're getting it.
Exactly. Now, let's specify here. Since May 5th, Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt have combined for 113 plate appearances with runners in scoring position. 113 plate appearances. They have combined for one extra base hit in those situations.
Oh.
One.
Oh.
Who has
Nolan Arenado has 49 plate appearances with runners in scoring position since May 5th. This is now 2 months. And in those 49 plate appearances, he has 0 extra base hits. He is batting 163 with runners in scoring position over this span. Paul Goldschmidt has 1 extra base hit. It was a home run. He's batting 123 with runners in scoring position in this span. Alex, we've talked a lot about Goldy and Arenado, where they should be in the Cardinals lineup. They're going to be in there every day. They're going to play. There's no getting around that. Does it matter where they hit? Should they be higher? Should they be lower? I think this, to me, is a perfect example of why they need to be lower in your order. I understand they deserve all of the respect in the world, dude. They're future Hall of Famers. I get that, and they should have waited. They were right to do so. You give them the respect of being these veterans. And Arenado had like a week where he was put down into the 6 hole. Soon. I think soon is fair to say. You're 90 games into the season now. We have 2 months of sample size where they have 1 combined extra base hit with a runner in scoring position. You want them getting fewer opportunities in those spots. And the way to do that is by putting them further down into the lineup. For me, especially against right-handed pitching at this point, you got to get those guys lower in the order, man.
Yeah, I mean, specifically Nolan Arenado, I think he needs to be hitting in your 7 or 8 spot right now. You cannot have him. You have better hitters that should be hitting before Nolan Arenado even gets an opportunity to look at the runners in scoring position spot. Like, my prime area right now is 2 through 5. And 2 through 5, we're talking about Alec Burleson, Brendan Donovan, Wilson Contreras, even Lars Nootbaar, who's been injured for a significant amount of time. Those guys need to be seeing a bulk of my at-bats in 1 through 6. Nolan Gorman, depending on if he's on the hot streak you're talking about in that position. Paul Goldschmidt, because he's hitting so well lately in terms of just making contact, I can understand him being a little bit higher up. But there is no situation where I should be seeing guys like Lars Nootbaar, Brendan Donovan, Alec Burleson, depending on what they go with the lineup moving forward. There's no way that I should be seeing those guys hit lower in the order than Nolan Arenado.
Yeah, Goldy and Arenado are going to have to be at some point below 6 in the lineup. Like, I think right now, like, the way I would construct the lineup, Goldy would probably be 6, Arenado's probably 8. And you just sandwich the lefty in between them. Like Nootbaar probably hits a little bit between them until he really get his feet back wet in the major leagues. Then you can kind of move him up and down the order. And you can do the same for Gorman as well. When Gorman's back to going through that month where he struggles, okay, now he comes back down a little bit lower and you replace him with another lefty up higher into the batting order. It's just, for Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado, this is not going to be their season. I don't expect this to change, and I don't want them coming up in big situations. I want them to be at the bottom of the order, to where it is less likely that they see runners in scoring position in the top part of the order. You know, if they have guys on base when they're hitting 6 and 8, that's fine. You know what that probably tells me? It tells me that 1 through 5 did their job. Yep. Right now, having them 1 through 5 in your order at 4 and 5 like they did yesterday, you're getting guys on and you're not having them come through. They just are not the guy that's going to be driving in those runs that are going to be changing baseball games for you this season.
You know what Arenado is? He's the definition of an 8-hole hitter.
Yeah.
Good defensively at third base. He's hitting for a decent amount of average right now. I think over the last month, Dan had the stat earlier today. He's batting like .320 over the last 5 weeks, something like that. He's hitting for average. There's just no power whatsoever in his bat right now. And honestly, at this point, I kind of hope it's injury related, because it would help to explain what's happened to him, and it would give me more optimism for what could still be there, because it's not like he's on a 1-year contract. With Goldy, this is easy. Okay, you go your separate ways at the end of the year. Like, that's fine. They've got their internal solution now. You know Alec Burleson is probably your first baseman of the future. Great. Awesome. We've got that figured out. The Arenado piece of the equation is much more difficult to explain. So if it's an injury that's sapping his power, all right, that at least I've got an explanation, excuse, whatever you want to call it. That makes sense. But he's an 8-hole hitter. That's what he is today. And it's hard for somebody to accept that at this point in their career when they're a future Hall of Famer that consistently puts up 35 bombs and 100 RBIs in any individual season. But that's who he is. He's no longer the guy that he was as recently as a year or two ago. He's not that player. So if you're trying to put the best lineup on the field and you're in this race where there is a razor-thin margin of error for this team, because they are consistently in these one-run games. And so every at-bat that Arenado is taking right now with runners in scoring position gives you even less margin for error because he's unlikely to come through, and he's really unlikely to score multiple runs if you got multiple guys on base because he can't hit for power. I need to get him lower in the order. The best way to do that, the best way to solve this problem is to put him lower in the order, bat him 8th, Siani's 9th, and let's work around that. That's the best way to go about it right now. And honestly, Goldy should probably be batting 5th or 6th. And that's the way you can make this work. If you want to switch those two, that's fine too. I personally think that because of his power, I would have Goldy a little higher. He's got more slugging percentage potential in his bat right now. I can't have Nolan Arenado consistently batting in my top 6. It's not something that's feasible for you long term unless something changes.
Yeah, I think if you're playing the respect game with Nolan Arenado, once you hit the unofficial second half of the season out of the All-Star break, you're setting yourself up for more damage than good because it's going to kill a lot of the momentum for your team. And I know they've found ways to surpass that. But to me, post-All-Star break is different baseball. That's when playoff baseball actually begins for a lot of teams, especially when you're talking about the National League where you got a lot of teams fighting for wild card spots. And if you're relying on Nolan Arenado to come up big for you with runners in scoring position, I think you're going to be sadly mistaken and hurt an awful lot more than you're going to have success with.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Somebody on the text line said, BK at it again. Seriously, you've been on a campaign, a mission, a crusade, a vendetta, whatever you want to call it, against Nolan and Goldy all season long. And why? What are you winning? I'm not on any of those things. The best case scenario for me, for the Cardinals, is that those guys get this thing figured out, man. That would be best case scenario for everybody involved. They've got a problem with too many lefties. They don't hit well enough against right-handed. Dude, every problem that they have right now offensively could be solved by Goldy and Arenado hitting like themselves again. If that happened, if just overnight they became their former versions of themselves, the Cardinals are a World Series contender. And all they got to do is go out and get a number 2 starter. And you're in it. Like, you're absolutely in it suddenly. The reason why I keep harping on this is because that's true. Like, if you don't get that out of them and Goldy and Arenado can't figure this thing out offensively, you got a problem, dude. Goldy's hitting .229 this year. Like, at a certain point in time, it's not a me harping on them. It's a production. We can all look at the baseline statistics and see this is not good enough. Paul Goldschmidt this year has essentially been for the Cardinals what Brendan Rodgers has been so far this year for the Colorado Rockies, or what Josh Bell has been so far this year for the Miami Marlins. That's not good enough. He's been for the Cardinals what Christopher Morel is for the Cubs, or Brian De La Cruz has been for Miami. That ain't good enough, dude. He's getting $25 million a year to be a middle of the order bat, and he's not producing that way. This isn't a me problem. This is a production problem. That's why we continue to talk about it here on the show, and we will continue to do so despite all of the criticisms of doing so. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, we'll hit the rewind next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK. If you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check out the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
If you missed any of it, you missed our conversation with Jeremy Rutherford, our conversation with Katie Wu, which was pushed back from yesterday. You also missed us talking about what the Cardinals should do deadline-wise, how Miles Mikolas fits into that, and how their current record of 48-42 compares to other recent National League representatives in the World Series. Alex, let's finish today where we started, which is with Miles Mikolas. He, in his last 12 starts, has 9 quality starts. One of the others was a 5-inning, 1 earned run performance. So 10 pretty solid starts at a minimum out of his last 12, but he has 2 outlier performances, which were terrible. 4 1/3, 9 earned runs, 4 innings, 6 earned runs. And that's ultimately what a lot of people will grasp onto and say, well, but there's still this, and that's a problem for him. When you look at Miles Mikolas today and you think about, okay, if he was your number 4 starter going into a playoff series, are you comfortable with that for the Cardinals?
As a number 4, absolutely, because that means I've got 3 other dudes that are better than Miles Mikolas, and Miles Mikolas is at least competent enough to keep me somewhat competitive in a game. He's a pitch-to-contact pitcher. And sometimes it works. Sometimes his defense has to save his bacon, i.e. Michael Ciani making like Gold Glove-esque plays. And sometimes he gets lit up. It's always roulette with Miles Mikolas. And it's just a matter of which one you're going to get. But if you're telling me that that dude's my number 4 starter, yeah, fine. Because a number 4 starter, if I'm at a number 4 starter that is supposed to be winning me a baseball game, I've fallen short elsewhere. And I'm relying on that to save my bacon. So if you're going to upgrade over Miles Mikolas, good on you. But I don't think the Cardinals are. I think the Cardinals are like, he is our number 2.
Could you get away with him in a game 4? Maybe. I would not want to have him in game 4 just because of what you said. Does not have enough swing and miss stuff for a playoff caliber starter. I do not trust guys that pitch to contact. And I know that is anti-old school. I'm sorry. I'm not playing the lucky game of, okay, does the ball go to a defender or not? There were multiple times yesterday where he had the chance to be in trouble, but his defense saved him. And look, credit to the Cardinals defense, and this team is well constructed to have a Miles Mikolas. But I would not trust him.
I do trust it as a number 4, nothing more. They need to get a starter that slots in ahead of him and Kyle Gibson. For
Tyler
Alex
Anderson.
and T-Bone, I'm BK. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.